crazy. My name is Ella, and I'm 12 years old. In my previous life, when I was 10, Dad and Mom, who had been working away from home for 7 years, came back. I prepared gifts for Dad and Mom with great anticipation. On the day they came back, I saw sis Chloe, who was 2 years younger than me, for the first time. Chloe was dressed up beautifully, like a princess. I looked down at my faded short-sleeved shirt that cost 10 yuan and on my birthday, Dad and Mom took me to the mall to pick out clothes. Sis and I both liked the same dress, and Mom advised me. You're the older sister, so let Sis have the dress. I threw the dress in Sis's face. Wear it, are you not going to live to see your birthday? Sis's crying attracted the attention of the customers around us. Under Dad and Mom's scolding, I pulled Sis's pants off, screamed, twisted, convulsed, and howled, spinning in circles while waving the pants around like a dog barking. Everyone looked at me in horror. And I was completely crazy. My name is Ella, and I'm 12 years old. In my previous life, when I was 10, Dad and Mom, who had been working away from home for 7 years, came back. I prepared gifts for Dad and Mom with great anticipation. On the day they came back, I saw sis Chloe, who was 2 years younger than me, for the first time. Chloe was dressed up beautifully, like a princess. I looked down at my faded short-sleeved shirt that cost 10 yuan and felt like crying. Granny didn't notice my sadness and smiled as she pushed me towards Chloe. Ellie, you're the older sister now. You have to accommodate sis in everything. Dad and Mom also took my hands. Ellie, from now on, besides Dad and Mom, sis will also love you. I nodded blankly, forgetting to take out the gift I had prepared for Dad and Mom for a month. But in the days that followed, Chloe took advantage of Dad and Mom's love for her to bully me, slander me, steal my things, and even push me down the stairs. A thick iron nail pierced my stomach, and I fainted from the pain. In my blurry vision, I seemed to see Chloe's smug face. Dad and Mom love me the most. You're just a failure. Now that I have been reborn, I deeply understand a truth. Take a step back and endure breast hyperplasia, endure ovarian cysts. The best way to deal with a spoiled girl is to repay her hatred with hatred. The consequence of throwing a tantrum in the mall was that I was filmed by passers-by and the video was uploaded online. However, in this life, I have already mastered the art of indifference. No matter what happens outside, I remain unmoved. I go to school calmly, eat calmly, and go to the bathroom calmly. I am completely calm. My father was so angry that he grabbed me by the collar like a chicken and slapped me hard on both cheeks. You've disgraced me and your mother. I screamed at the top of my lungs, crying like a pig being slaughtered. Ah, it hurts so much. If you like Chloe so much, why don't you just take her and live happily ever after as a family of 3? Why come back and bother me? Granny heard this and slapped her thigh, exclaiming, Ellie, how can you say that? Your dad and mom are working hard outside just for you. Chloe is your own sister. You should love and care for her. Look at yourself now. You don't even act like an older sister. Mom shook her head, her eyes filled with disappointment. Ellie, you weren't like this when you were little. Like, when you and Dad abandoned me, I was only 2 years old. Now, not only am I bigger, but I'm also stronger. So, I flipped over, jumped, and rolled to the window, half my body dangling outside. Dad was so scared that he immediately grabbed Kang's hand. What are you doing? I scratched my butt and showed my 8 big white teeth. I can't hold it anymore. Saying that, I squatted on the windowsill and reached for my pants. I need to poop. Of course, I didn't manage to take off my pants and poop. The reason was that Chloe had hurt her arm at school, and Dad and Mom had rushed out with Granny after receiving a call. They completely forgot about me. I sighed, rubbed my numb legs, and shyly jumped down from the windowsill. I was the only one left in the empty house, so I went to Chloe's room, feeling helpless. Chloe's room was the largest room in the house, painted pink and decorated like a Barbie princess's palace. I tore down the decorations on the wall, stomped on them hard, and spat on Chloe's bedding, silently rubbing it in. Suddenly, I saw a diary on Chloe's desk. Although it was immoral to read someone else's diary, I happened to be an immoral person. I flipped to the first page, which read, Ella is a slut. Flipping further, the pages were filled with my name written in red ink, accompanied by the word die in large letters. The ink seeped through the paper. How much hatred must have been poured into those words. I remembered that in my previous life, I had discovered Sue Chloe's diary and was so scared I trembled all over. After much deliberation, I mustered the courage to hand the diary to Dad and Mom. But after reading it, they didn't say a single comforting word. Instead, they laughed and said, "Look, your sister's handwriting is so beautiful." They knew I was a sensible child. A sensible child doesn't fight back, doesn't say it hurts, doesn't cry when there's no candy, and even if another child takes the candy and throws it on the ground, she'll just quietly pick it up, crush it, and eat it silently. When I was at the top of my class, they would brag to their colleagues. "Ellie is our pride and joy." But after my grades declined, they realized they couldn't get anything out of me anymore, so they started attacking me personally. "Ella, your legs are so thick. How dare you wear a skirt to school?" I ate as usual, but they didn't spare me. "You're as fat as a pig. If I were you, I'd just go die." From that moment on, I truly realized that my dad and mom didn't love me. Being a good child only leads to bullying at home. So, in this life, I won't just cause a scene, I'll throw left hooks, right hooks, flying kicks, grab their collars and throw them to the ground, pick their heads up and spin them around, stomp on their stomachs, and smash their skulls flat with one palm. Then I'll gnaw on their corpses like a zombie. When Sue Chloe came back and saw her room in shambles, she naturally wouldn't let me off the hook. Dad rewarded me with another big slap. Due to the immense force of that slap, I stumbled a few times and fell face-first onto the table edge. Instantly, blood flowed down my forehead and onto my cheeks. Sue Chloe stuck her tongue out at me triumphantly. I stood up straight and sneered at Dad. "You've been out in the world for so many years, and all you've learned is how to hit people?" Dad was taken aback, and when he realized I was mocking him, he flew into a rage. "Just wait until I beat you to death today." I pulled out my phone from my pocket and shouted, "Police, help me. My dad is trying to kill me." Mom and Granny rushed over, one snatching the phone from my hand and apologizing to the police, while the other covered my mouth tightly from behind. After the commotion, Dad finally seemed a bit scared. He pretended to be a loving father again, patted the sofa next to him and told me to sit down. "Ellie, do you have a misunderstanding about Dad, Mom, and Sis? It's okay, just say it, Dad will help you solve it. Don't cross your legs," I said. Dad was clearly angry with me again. I wiped the blood from my face and sat calmly. "Is your manic disorder acting up again?" Dad's forehead veins bulged, and his teeth gritted loudly. After a while, he returned to normal, lit a cigarette, and stared at me with a smile. "Ella, speak up. What do you really want?" "What do I want?" In the past, I would have said I wanted love, I wanted affection from my parents. But at that moment, looking into Dad's cold eyes, I only said, "I want to cut off all ties with you." "Fine." Dad stubbed out his cigarette in the ashtray, crushed it a few times with a dark look in his eyes, then looked up and said, "Do you really think I ever treated you like my own daughter?" I said sympathetically, "Did my mom cheat on you?" Dad raised his hand to hit me. I dodged and laughed. "Richard, do you really think I want to be your daughter? Every day I live under the name of your daughter makes me feel sick. I know better than anyone why my dad left this place to work in another city. When I was 3, my dad took out a high-interest loan, owed his employees a mountain of debt, and fled with my mom to another city. But heaven always forgives a devil. Over the years in another city, Richard made a name for himself, not only having a daughter named Sue Chloe but also becoming the boss of a small company. While he was away, I was the one who had to endure all the scorn and abuse. What could I do? A father who ran away, a weak mother, a feudal grandmother, and her broken heart. As Richard's daughter, this was my fate. At the age of 14, I finally turned into a crazy woman, sticking a spear in shit and stabbing anyone who got in my way. Once, Chloe stole my modeling clay. At night, I broke into Chloe's room and cut her hair into a hedgehog style with scissors. When Mom found out, she was so scared that she made Chloe give the modeling clay back to me. "Chloe, don't you know that her things are like golden beans? No one is allowed to touch them." I smiled with satisfaction. Yes, that's right. No one needs to care about me. Everyone can just stay away from me. One night, Chloe came to me and said, Ella, haven't you ever wondered why your parents don't like you? You're too extreme. Everyone around you gets hurt. Dad and Mom like someone who is sensible, kind, and can bring value to them, not someone who is full of thorns. I scratched my ear, confused. What are you talking about? Chloe angrily said, Ella, I'm trying to help you. Don't be ungrateful. Don't you know it yourself? In all the years we've been away, Dad and Mom have never mentioned you once. Because the three of us are a family. It's your appearance that disrupted our peaceful family life. I smiled as I approached Sue Chloe and slapped her across the face. Just as Sue Chloe was about to call out to Dad and Mom, I let out a scream and collapsed to the ground. Sis, my dear sis. Your face is swollen. The old master said to take care of your health and protect the child in your womb. How could you be so careless? I pounded my chest with both fists, screaming hysterically, twisting my body into an odd shape, and spitting saliva onto Sue Chloe. If anything happens to you, what will I do? Sue Chloe was so scared she collapsed on the ground. Please, spare me. In the days that followed, I went about my days alone, staying in the corner of the classroom studying frantically, and locking myself in my room at home, studying day and night. Another summer arrived, and in the heat and noise of July, I was admitted to the best high school in the city with the 7th highest score in the school. Dad and Mom couldn't stop smiling and boasted about my grades to everyone they met. Not only that, but my dad even threw a banquet to celebrate my admission. At the banquet, my dad got drunk and, with a red face, shouted at me to perform a program for my uncles and aunts. I'm not good at singing or dancing. In my previous life, to satisfy Richard's vanity, I was called to the stage and performed a dance with uncoordinated limbs. In the end, Richard called out Sue Chloe. Sue Chloe had been trained in dance since she was little. Seeing her dance gracefully in a beautiful ballet skirt, I realized that this graduation banquet was all a ploy by Richard. Sue Chloe stood on my shoulders and was recognized by my junior high school dance teacher, and from then on, she embarked on the path of art. This time, I responded directly. Go dance for your grandfather. The relatives and friends around us were taken aback for a moment, then quickly smoothed things over. Ellie, you're really a brainiac. You sure know how to say things concisely. My dad was afraid I would start acting up again, so he hurriedly waved his hands. Okay, no acting. Let's not act. I nodded mysteriously, as if to say to my dad, this child is teachable. Turning around, I left everyone behind and ran home to pack for the first day of school. Thinking about seeing my old acquaintances at school, I couldn't help but feel excited. When I entered the new classroom, the first person I saw was my archenemy, Bella. Bella came from a wealthy family, had excellent grades, and was my closest friend in elementary school. But ever since Chloe Sue returned, Bella had turned her attention to Chloe and gradually drifted away from me. In my previous life, aside from my family, Bella was my greatest source of pain. When Bella saw me, she furrowed her brows. Ella, you got assigned to the same class as me? I ignored her and continued cleaning my desk. Seeing that I was ignoring her, Bella sat down in the seat in front of me and turned to me. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Bella was still talking with her mouth wide open, and I blew the dust I had rubbed off the desk onto her. In an instant, a mixture of old snot and saliva flew into Bai Muyao's mouth. Bella froze, pursed her lips a few times, tasted what it was, and immediately threw up on the ground. Ella, Bella raised her head, her face red and her eyes filled with tears. Before she could react, I planted a kiss on her cheek. Bella was completely frozen. Good, that kiss will be enough to gross her out for the rest of her life. Just then, I heard a high-pitched male voice. Sumi Masai. Damu, can I sit next to you? I looked up and saw a boy with his left eye covered by his bangs. Damn, it's Otaku. My deskmate's surname is Xia, and his first name is Qing. He likes to watch anime and play games, and is a typical gamer otaku. He's very strange, sleeping on his desk every day and occasionally going crazy. But he got the highest marks in the class. Covering his face with one hand, looking pained, I can't see anything. Damn it, this body is too weak. I glanced at him. Bro, are you having a seizure? Liam smiled awkwardly, and I actually saw a hint of shyness in him. By the way, Did you do the last question in yesterday's math homework? I asked him. Homework? Liam scratched his head. I never do it. To my shock, he grinned. I can do it all. I was furious. Liam, you're such a gamer, how can you be so smart? Because I have the power given to me by God. I shot him a dirty look. Liam shrank back, cleared his throat, and regained his composure. Actually, learning is all about method. What method? I can't really explain it. You know, math is a subject where, besides being able to do the problems, you also have to find connections between it and other things. I leaned in to listen, and Liam's ears turned red for no apparent reason, and he started to stutter. Actually, you can think about your favorite subject, Chinese. It's not just language and writing, but also the literature and art that stem from it. It's a vehicle for human emotions, allowing everything in the universe, both grand and small, to be passed down through the ages. Liam became more and more excited as he spoke. In an instant, he grew taller in my eyes. My goodness, he was glowing. Time flew by, and before I knew it, it was my senior year of high school. Everyone in my class wished they could stretch every minute into 2. I decided not to go home and moved my study area to the classroom and dormitory. When I went home to get something, only Granny was there. I casually asked where my parents and Chloe were. The answer was that Richard had taken them on a trip abroad. Granny said earnestly, Chloe has been under a lot of pressure at school lately, so Dahua took her on a trip to relax. Ellie, you're doing well in school, so you should help Sis more. We're a family, so we have to stick together. Sis and I were close, and we played mind games together. But I knew that Granny had grown up in the countryside and had never received an education. These ideas weren't outdated, they were the result of her experiences and the environment she had grown up in. I didn't answer Granny. I grabbed my things and turned to leave. Was I being too cold-hearted? Come on, I wasn't even losing my mind. When I got back to school, I immediately saw Liam, that show-off, standing on a chair and wailing. What, even Brainiac goes crazy. When Liam saw me, he wailed even louder. Woo woo woo, a day without you feels like 3 autumns. Dear deskmate, I missed you so much. Seeing that Liam was about to pounce on me, I reached out and blocked his face. Finally, a long break arrived, and I heard that Sue, Chloe and the others were back. I hummed a song as I walked home. I just wanted to go home and go crazy. When I entered the door, the first person I saw was Sue Chloe. Sis, long time no see. Sue Chloe saw me as if she had seen a ghost and ran faster than a dog. Ella, don't come over here. You coward, you're no fun. I went back to my room and opened the door to find my bed covered with gift boxes. They were all bought for Sue Chloe by Richard from abroad. To be honest, I really wanted to throw them all into the toilet and flush them away. But maybe it was because of Liam's influence as a gamer, I managed to control my anger. Chloe, what's on my bed? I squinted and smiled. Did Sis put them there and forget to take them? Chloe immediately lowered her head and apologized, saying she would clean it up. Something was wrong, very wrong. When did Sue Chloe become so easy to talk to? Sure enough, when I looked closely, I saw Mom hiding in the corner. Mom saw that she had been discovered and said awkwardly, Ellie, come here, I need to talk to you. Okay. I wanted to see what she was up to. Mom pulled me down to sit on the sofa and held my hand affectionately. Ellie, do you like the food at school? Do you need more money? I can send you some more. You're growing, so you have to eat nutritious food. I shivered. Mom, really, just scold me instead. I got straight to the point. What do you want from me? Mom was caught off guard, paused for a moment, then smiled and said, It's nothing. It's just that your dad wanted to introduce Chloe to your junior high school dance teacher at your graduation banquet. But because of your nonsense, Chloe lost her chance. So, did you know something at the time? Huh, so that's why you were concerned about me. I crossed my legs and said bluntly, Go cut some fruit for me first. After Mom went into the kitchen, I opened her bag and found a voice recorder inside. Although it was expected, for some reason, my heart skipped a beat. When Mom came back with the fruit, I started acting innocent. Mom, I actually feel really guilty about this. I didn't know that my impulsive decision would affect Chloe Sis. If I could choose again, I'd rather be mocked by everyone than let sis have a bright future. To make my acting more convincing, I forced out a few tears. The White Lotus tactic isn't just something Chloe knows, I can pull it off too. Mom was stunned for a moment, then covered her face and cried. Ellie, Dad, and I have been too harsh on you these years. We didn't pay attention to your growth. I didn't expect you to be so sensible. I don't know if she was truly remorseful or just saying that to ease her own guilt. But I'm grown up now and don't need this kind of fuss anymore. Actually, I wanted to say that if I could choose again, I would scream, yell, and crawl in front of the teacher, making Chloe never be able to hold her head up again. At dinner time, Dad came back, carrying large shopping bags. Chloe, look what Dad brought you. Dad called out to Chloe with a loving expression. But he ended up looking straight at me. You're Ella? Richard didn't recognize me at first. Chloe saw Richard as if she had found a lifeline and rushed out of the room to throw herself into his arms. For a moment, I saw Chloe's shadow. I calmly sat down on the sofa, watching the loving father and daughter, pointed at Richard, and said, I'm hungry, hurry up and make me dinner. I looked up at Chloe, don't just stand there, Dad bought you some snacks, bring them all out. Also, I packed a bag of dirty clothes from school, you two go wash them. Chloe was furious, but she was afraid I would lose my temper, so she just glared at me without daring to say a word. I continued, by the way, I heard that Chloe Sis's midterm exam results are out, and she's third from the bottom. Is this the result of you hiring a tutor for her? You might as well have spent that money on me. I guarantee I could get into Tsinghua or Peking University. Chloe couldn't take it anymore. Ella, you're too much. What's wrong? Isn't what I said true? I turned to Dad. Dad gritted his teeth, Chloe, don't bother with her. Tomorrow, Dad will find you a better tutor. I'll make sure your grades go up. Is there a tutor who can bring someone back from the dead? I was stunned. I want a dozen of those teachers. The next morning, Dad and Mom took Chloe out and Granny went back to her hometown. When I woke up, the house was empty, with only the ticking of the clock. I stretched, pulled open the curtains, and saw the bright sunshine. Today is another beautiful day, I said to myself. When I entered the living room, I was surprised to find a plate of soy milk and fried dough sticks on the table, with a note tucked underneath. Ellie, your sister, and I went shopping. The breakfast on the table is for you. Get up and eat while it's still hot. Mom. I looked at the words on the note, my eyes flickering. Actually, I had mixed feelings toward Mom. I hated her weakness, her compromises, and her silence. But she married my father at the age of 18 and didn't have a job. A woman without productivity can only be oppressed in a family. My father's long-term psychological abuse led to Mom's personality. As I was feeling emotional, I heard a familiar voice from downstairs. Princess, I'm here to take you to school. I peeked out the window and saw Liam dressed provocatively, leaning against a black Mercedes, waving at me. The bright sunlight glinted off Liam's sunglasses, casting his face in half light, half shadow. For a moment, I actually thought he was kind of cute. By the way, Princess, you're always in such a hurry, so why didn't you come back to school last night? Liam climbed up to help me with my luggage. I was busy going crazy. People often say that otaku are crazy, but who cares? As long as you're happy, that's what matters. Idiot, I was really crazy. After getting into the car, I suddenly realized something. Young master, do you have a driver's license? Of course I do. Liam turned his head and raised his eyebrows at me. I'm already an adult. Liam was afraid I would misunderstand, so he explained, actually, I'm only 19 years old. I took a 2-year break from school because of family issues. Family issues? I thought I had found a kindred spirit. Family business inheritance issues. Liam looked serious. Okay, I suppressed the sympathy that was overflowing. I was overthinking it. It was stuffy in the car, so Liam picked up a bottle of water from the front and gulped it down. My expression became unnatural. Young master, that water. What's wrong? Liam shouted, did you poison it? You're not trying to murder me and take my place, are you? No. Just tell me. No matter what you put in it, I can get through it with a smile. Liam looked like he was ready to die for a cause. I confessed, "The bottle of water you're holding is the one I drank from." Liam froze. I had a piece of candy in my mouth, but it disappeared after I took a sip of water. "Did you swallow it?" I shook my head. "It must have fallen into the water." Liam looked at the empty bottle, his eyes dark and unclear. After a long pause, I timidly said, "Young master, you're not thinking of doing something rash, are you?" "Actually, it might have been swallowed." "It's okay." Liam licked his lips, as if savoring something. "This is actually pretty good. The young master is truly not someone ordinary people can be." I gave Liam a thumbs up. "You're the man, my brother." With the college entrance exam approaching, I didn't even go home to study. I rented a garage in a neighborhood near the school and studied late into the night. Everyone in the class was working hard, even Liam looked like he was studying. On the eve of the exam, I asked Richard for money to book a hotel, but he refused. In the end, Mom slipped me a wad of cash. After paying the rent for the garage, I could only afford a small, old, rundown room. Liam was driven to a 5-star hotel in a private car. That night, when I went out to get some water, I saw Liam standing at the door across from mine, waving at me. "What a coincidence." "You." Liam scratched his head and said, "The young master is just experiencing life." The next morning, after I left, I saw Liam's messy handwriting on the door. "Remember to bring your carbon pen, answer sheet pen, admission ticket, and ID card." When I looked up, Liam was waving at me with a smile. "Hurry up, deskmate. Let's go toward our dreams together." After the college entrance exam was over, I got on the bus back to school for the last time. The atmosphere was not as lively as everyone had imagined. Our homeroom teacher, Mr. Wang, tried to lighten the mood. "High school is over. What are your plans for the future?" The engine hummed for a long time, and the students looked down and remained silent, the bus filled with the silence of farewell. Liam broke the silence. "I'm Liam. My wish is to defeat the forces of darkness and let the light of Satan shine upon the earth." Then I stood up and shouted out the window. "My name is Ella, and my wish is to be able to poop freely on the streets." The students laughed, and then everyone opened the windows and shouted outside. "My name is Lin Zishuang, and I dream that one day humans will grow shells so we can shrink into them and sleep anytime, anywhere. My name is Anqing, and I hope that one day my true love will come to take me home on a rainbow cloud. My name is Gu Nan, and I hope that people will never have to go to work or school again." With Liam's absurd opening, the rest of the answers were all small potatoes. When it was Bella's turn, she said seriously, "I hope the boy I likes me back." After she finished, I noticed that she had quietly shifted her gaze to Liam. No one noticed Bella's little gesture. The students' answers became more and more absurd, and old Wang was so angry that he took off his shoes and chased Liam all over the car. The car was filled with laughter, and the warm wind blew across everyone's faces, freezing this moment in time. These 10 minutes of recklessness would become the freedom we would pursue for the rest of our lives. Summer vacation came quickly, and soon it would be my 18th birthday. Richard was no longer obligated to give me a penny. The first thing I had to do was support myself. In high school, I had always dreamed of writing a novel, but due to the pressure of my studies, I had never put pen to paper. Taking advantage of this time, I locked myself in my room and typed away for a week until I finally finished it. It was a pile of crap. With the mindset that even if it was a pile of crap, I wanted readers to taste it, I found an editor at a publishing house. Unexpectedly, after reading it, the editor praised it repeatedly and said it could be published immediately. Moreover, the royalties were substantial, enough to cover my tuition and living expenses for the first 2 years of college. See, even crap has its admirers. Although it was only much later that I found out that Liam had approached the publishing house in advance and paid them to publish my novel. Years later, whenever Liam mentioned this, he would look at me and say with emotion, "I wish I hadn't paid that publishing house so much money. Anyway, now it's yours." Over the next few days, I waited for one thing. I waited for Chloe Sue's birthday party. In my previous life, at Sue Chloe's 17th birthday party, Bella took me to a nearby dangerous building and said she wanted to play hide-and-seek with me. As a result, she locked me in the dangerous building alone. I jumped down from the 2nd floor, sprained my ankle, and struggled to walk back. I saw Bella surrounded by Sue Chloe's friends, with Sue Chloe standing next to Bella. Bella smiled. Do you guys know what Ella likes to eat? She likes fishy things. The fishier, the better. The boys around her said with malicious intent. Tell us more. She likes fishy things. No one wants to eat them, but Ella eats several plates a day. Isn't she a monster? Soon, the college entrance exam results were announced. I ranked 17th in the province. Needless to say, Liam was first in the province. Although there was still a big gap between me and Liam, I was already grateful to heaven for this result. In one day, I received countless calls from prestigious universities. In the end, I got tired of listening to them and turned off my phone. The next second, I heard a familiar ghostly cry. Little fairy, come out. It was undoubtedly Liam. Just as I was about to run downstairs, Richard stopped me. Baby, where are you going? I didn't even bother to look up. To the underworld. To cross some names off the book of life. Richard's lips twitched, then he laughed. You're in the top 20 in the province. So many schools are begging for you. It's not safe to go out alone. Dad will go with you. My goodness. I widened my eyes, feigning surprise. What did you just say? You said Dad? I'm your dad. Oh, wait, you're my dad? Oh my gosh, that's so niche. So Dad can send his daughter out? Oh my gosh, did I save the galaxy in my past life? Dad sending his daughter out, I'm so excited. Do other people's daughters get this treatment too? Richard's face looked as if he had swallowed a fly. I took the opportunity to squeeze past him and ran downstairs. Liam was dressed exceptionally flashily today, wearing a white suit and red sunglasses. The moment he saw me, Liam congratulated me. Congratulations, little fairy, you did great on the exam. The 17th place in the province is great, I don't deserve it. By the way, what major do you want to choose? I asked Liam. Probably something related to financial management, Liam sighed. After all, I have to consider my family. In an instant, I suddenly realized that it wasn't just me who had grown up. Even Liam, this boy who always spoke so childishly, had learned to be sensible. What about you? What major do you plan to study? Me? I thought for a moment. I think I'm suited for law. Why? My personality is suited for it. I'll go crazy, but I'll save myself 4 years of detours. Chloe Sue's birthday party arrived as scheduled. Richard invited many of his business partners, and I even saw Liam among them. Liam spread his hands toward me. My parents made me come with them. Even Liam's parents were invited. It seemed like Richard was trying to pave the way for Sue Chloe again. After some small talk with Richard, the conversation somehow turned to me. Old Rick, you really know how to raise a daughter. Ellie did so well on the college entrance exam. You must have played a big role in that. Richard said shamelessly, haha, yeah, Ellie is a pretty stubborn kid. If it weren't for me nagging her every day, she wouldn't have achieved such good results. Go to hell. I was about to charge over and lose my mind, but someone grabbed my arm. The next second, my mouth was covered, and I felt dizzy. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a messy storage room with someone sitting in front of me. My head was spinning, and after a moment, I realized that the person in front of me was Bella. Rough rope rubbed against my wrists, and I managed to utter a few words. Are you crazy? Bella's smile sent a chill down my spine. Ella, don't try to stand in Chloe's way this time. Let me tell you, I never considered you a friend. Chloe is my best friend, and she told me that if I could keep you out of the way this time, she would give me a large sum of money. Best friend? I burst out laughing. Is the relationship between a master and a dog really that complicated? Bella was so angry that she rushed over and slapped me across the face. But I didn't wait for the next slap. Do you know that kidnapping is illegal? I opened my eyes and saw Liam holding Bella's arm tightly. In an instant, I felt. Liam, you're so damn handsome. After seeing Liam, Bella went limp and collapsed on the ground, watching Liam untie my hands. Just as Liam was helping me leave, I heard Bella's trembling voice behind me. Liam, let me explain. I didn't mean it. Liam didn't even turn his head. Suddenly, Bella screamed with all her might. Liam, I like you. I've liked you since the day I first stepped into high school. Can you just look at me once? Liam's footsteps paused for a moment, and I felt his hand trembling as he held mine. The next second, he raised my hand. I'm sorry, I already have someone I like. Her name is Ella. After coming out of the storage room, Liam was shaking violently. Hey, I poked him, but Liam jumped away. Do you have Parkinson's? Liam's face turned red, and he explained. Deskmate, don't take it seriously. I was just trying to get out of it. It's fake? I was a little disappointed. Actually, it's not, Liam stammered. Okay, I understand. I stood on my tiptoes and touched Liam's hair. Since you're not going to confess your feelings to me, then I'll have to confess mine first. Liam's whole body turned red. Ella, what do you mean? You idiot, of course I do, I like you too. When we returned to the party, most people had left, and the table was a mess. Only Richard was left sitting on the stage, covering his face. I didn't do anything, I raised my hands to prove my innocence. When Richard saw me, he wiped away his tears and grabbed my hand like he was clinging to a lifeline. Ellie, you're back. You're safe. Quick, let's go to the police station and get your sister out on bail. Seeing me standing there motionless, Richard came over and pulled me anxiously. Just now, the police suddenly came in, saying they received a report that Chloe kidnapped you. But you're fine now. They're framing Chloe. This is my father. He doesn't care about my safety at all. He only wants to squeeze every last drop of value out of me. So I smiled and said, sure, I'll go with you. At the police station, I turned against them and told the police that Chloe and Bella had kidnapped me. With Liam as a witness, Chloe and Bella would be detained for several days. From that moment on, Richard completely abandoned me. That was exactly what I wanted. I was long past the age of needing my parents' care and concern. 2 months later, I entered college. In college, I met a group of like-minded friends, and I became a different person, learning to rein in my personality. I became more gentle. At a club party, another room was singing karaoke, and it was a bit noisy. As we were drinking, a guy confessed his feelings to me. I was a little drunk and saw a tall, handsome guy with broad shoulders and a narrow waist walking over and taking my hand. Sorry, she already has a boyfriend. I felt relieved and leaned against Liam with a clear conscience. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Liam and I went to the same university. He studies finance, and I study law. The cool night breeze brushed through my hair, and the songs outside the room continued. I heard people cheering around me. Our lives will always continue. The end. In my second life, my arranged marriage partner changed. Instead of choosing Shindek, whom I had deeply loved for 6 years, I chose his twin brother Benjamin. Everyone in Seattle found it strange. After all, I had attempted suicide and been in a car accident for Shindek, loving him with all my heart. But in my previous life, my love had pushed him into another woman's bed. It wasn't until our golden wedding anniversary that I discovered the 2-meter-wide bed in the bedroom had never been mine alone. The drawer under the bed was filled with used condoms. When I discovered the truth, I suffered a stroke and died on the spot. In this life, I let them be and let myself go. The moment I put on Benjamin's wedding ring, Shindek knelt on the red carpet, tears streaming down his face. After confirming the details of the arranged marriage with my father, I announced on social media that I was no longer single. Shindek brought his group of friends to help me celebrate my birthday. They said it was to celebrate my birthday, but their hands were empty, and their faces were filled with malicious smiles. Sis, since you're already engaged, stop causing trouble. He and Guash aren't together. If you push him too far, we won't be able to stop him. You two are always causing trouble. We can't take it anymore. After 5 days of Cold War, Shindek didn't show any warmth when he saw me. Who said we're engaged? My parents just said it. They didn't get my consent, so it doesn't count. Who knows if she's lying? He glanced at me with impatience, and the bitterness in my heart rose to the surface. I forced a smile. I am getting engaged, but I didn't say it was to you. Don't worry about it. One of his friends shouted in denial, impossible. My father's information is reliable. Your marriage to the Shaws is a done deal. Another voice complained, ugh. Women's dirty tricks, playing hard to get. Don't you guys understand? Several people laughed heartily, but Shindek's face remained grim. He turned his head and smiled coldly. I haven't seen you in a few days, and you've learned a lot. It's a pity that even if you use Sun Tzu's art of war, you still have to get my approval. Considering that you've been chasing me for 6 years, I'll agree to let you be my bridesmaid when I get married. As soon as she said this, the whole room erupted. The other guys teased him, Brother Chi, she's been determined to marry you since she was a kid. Everyone in Seattle knows that. If you don't marry her, who else would she marry? Shindek frowned and thought for a moment, then smiled amusedly. You're right. Why don't you wait until I get married and become my third wife? With my background, I'm definitely not going to have just one woman. If you can make me happy, I might take pity on you and let you have a child. I looked at him with a complicated expression, feeling both angry and amused. How dare he ask the Yu family's heiress to be his mistress? It's all my fault. It was my relentless fawning over the past few years that had fueled his unfounded confidence. But in my previous life, he had married me at his family's arrangement. This time, his resistance could only mean one thing: he had also been reborn. Just then, the door opened, and his long-awaited classmate, Guash, arrived. His brothers swarmed around him, chattering, if you didn't come, Chi would have married someone else. They said this while looking at me with schadenfreude. Guash was acting weak as usual. Miss Ellie and Deck are a good match. I wish you a long and happy life together. As she spoke, she wiped the tears from her face. Shindek felt sorry for her and turned to pull her away. I took out my phone and typed a message, I'll do as you say. Let's get engaged and married at the same time. When I put down my phone, I saw the two of them kissing passionately in the corner of the living room. Shindek's big hands had already quietly slipped into Guash's clothes and were wandering around. There were faint moans coming from them. Everyone stared at me, waiting for me to explode. Last week, I had only argued with Shindek because he poured a cup of coffee for Guash, and we had been in a cold war for 5 days. This time, with such a passionate kiss in front of everyone, it was bound to cause a huge scene. Even Shindek, who noticed us standing behind him, smiled at me and waited for me to explode. To his disappointment, I only glanced at him indifferently and turned away. Shindek was taken aback, but after a moment, he looked delighted. Not bad. You're already starting to adapt to your role as the third wife. You know to avoid your elder sister-in-law. If you keep being this virtuous, how wonderful. As he finished speaking, he seemed to remember something and ordered in a domineering tone. Ash is feeling unwell today. Take her to the guest room to rest. I didn't want to pay attention to his bossiness, but as today's birthday girl, I had a duty to take care of all the guests. This was my duty as the hostess. After taking Ash to the rest room on the 2nd floor, Shindek hurriedly followed. Miss Ellie, I'm sorry, Fuchi Incorporated and I are in the honeymoon phase, please forgive me. I glanced at Ash with a scheming look, toning down the cultural bias, which only Shindek would appreciate. Not wanting to say anything, I nodded. Just as I was about to close the door for her, I heard her soft voice pleading, Chi, my chest feels so tight, can you rub it for me? Shindek didn't say anything, but his hands continued to massage her. A moment later, I heard Guash's faint moans. I raised my eyes and met her smiling, triumphant gaze, which seemed both mocking and smug. At that moment, Shindek seemed to think of something and turned to me, saying, don't be jealous. If you want such attentive boyfriend service, I can give it to you too. Before he could finish, I decisively closed the door. With a click, all the annoying people and sounds were shut out. That night, when the birthday party was over and everyone was preparing to leave, Shindek found me with a dark expression on his face and threw a bouquet of flowers and a jewelry box into my arms. Here. Your birthday present. You looked so upset when you didn't get a present earlier, you're so dramatic. I gave you the present, so don't give Guash the cold shoulder anymore. She's not better than you. She's not as shameless as you. Since you're so eager to please me, I'll let you spread the fake engagement news. My gaze fell on the wilted red roses, and I didn't say a word. I opened the jewelry box and found a pair of cheap plastic rabbit ear studs inside. I pursed my lips and asked, are these yours or Guash's? He turned his head impatiently and glared at me disapprovingly. What's the difference between what I gave her and what she gave you? Anyway, she and I will get married sooner or later. In my previous life. I couldn't give her what I wanted, but I will give her everything in the future. I wasn't sure before, but now I was almost certain that he had been reborn too. He continued, his words tinged with warning. I won't hold the rumors you spread this time against you, but if you do it again, don't blame me for exposing you in public. I pursed my lips and furrowed my brow. Shindek, I didn't say I wanted to marry you. Can you stop being so presumptuous? He snorted lightly, his contemptuous gaze falling on me. He hadn't said anything, but it felt like he had said everything. I didn't bother arguing with him anymore. After all, everything would be revealed once Benjamin returned to the country. What the world didn't know was that the Shaws, a renowned family in Seattle, had peculiar ways of raising their children. As twins born to the same mother, Declan Shindek enjoyed all of his mother's love, while his older brother was not favored by his mother and was sent abroad to study at a young age. Fortunately, Mr. Shaw Sr. was a bit more sensible and realized that Shindek was not cut out for business, so he spared no effort in nurturing his eldest son. Benjamin studied abroad while managing the family business, which is why the Shaws did not fall into ruin. After washing up, I lay in bed playing with my phone when Gu Ash sent me a video. In the video, there were a series of purple and blue strawberry marks on her ample chest. The mixture of blue and white made my stomach churn. Seeing that I didn't respond, she sent several more photos, showing Shindek naked from the waist up with her name tattooed on his lower abdomen. She even told me, "Do you like the rabbit ear earrings? He made them for me himself. I'm tired of wearing them, so I'm being kind and giving them to you. After all, he's always just been going through the motions with you. He's the one who truly loves me. I advise you to stop making a fool of yourself. Save yourself the trouble. He'll never marry you." I didn't want to waste my breath on a woman like her, so I ignored her. But after a while, Shindek called again. I wanted to know what she wanted, so I answered. "Eleanor, your mother is dead, but your father is still alive. How can you be so ill-mannered? Ash took the initiative to talk to you, why didn't you respond? If you continue to be so ungrateful, you don't even deserve to be my third son." Shindek's angry words were like an ice knife, stabbing deep into my heart. My mother died in a car accident trying to save me, and it has always been a scar in my heart that no one else could touch. Shindek had always known this, but for the sake of Ash, he used a sharp weapon to repeatedly stab me in my wound. It wasn't until now that I finally understood him. A suffocating pain rose in my chest, and I clutched my chest, cursing him word by word. "You bastard, you want me to be your third wife? Don't be delusional. You only deserve that woman. A whore deserves a dog. It's a match made in heaven." With that, I hung up the phone with a loud click. In my previous life, my parents arranged for me to marry Shin December. Although he was always cold toward me, we at least maintained a polite facade. This new life has completely shattered my worldview. I opened my phone and checked Benjamin's social media account. If he was the same kind of person as Shindek, I'd rather not marry at all in this lifetime. But his account was full of business-related content, with no trace of romance. The weight on my heart finally lifted. Just then, Dad knocked on the door and came in, holding a large gift box. "Dad, what's this?" Dad looked at me kindly, pointed to the first box, and smiled. "Benjamin knows you like Tiffany jewelry, so he specially sent it from abroad. I heard he even had your name engraved on it." I opened it half-heartedly, and sure enough, my English name was engraved on the sea blue ocean heart. Although I didn't say anything, a secret joy rose in my heart. Everyone wants to be cherished by their future husband, and I was no exception. But in my previous life, I had no impression of my twin brother, only knowing that he had lived overseas for many years. The next day, I took the dress my mother had left me to the bridal studio. She was gone, but the dress she had designed for me was still there. After 20 years, the edges of the dress were a little worn. As I ran my fingers over the fabric, I thought of my mother, whom I would never see again, and my heart ached unbearably, my eyes welling up with tears. Seeing my low spirits, the staff led me to the rest area to wait. But before long, the staff rushed over, looking panicked, and said in alarm, "Miss Ellie, your dress is missing." I jumped to my feet to ask what happened, but then I heard Shindek's voice. "It's just a dress. Ash just wanted to try it on." Why are you making such a big deal out of it? Eleanor, just think of it as an apology for your rudeness last night. The anger in my heart mixed with the resentment from my past life exploded like a bomb, burning away all my reason. I turned my head and immediately sneered without mercy. What, are the Shaws bankrupt? You can't even afford a dress for the golden canary metaphor, yet you dare to steal someone else's? Shindek's face darkened upon hearing this. Eleanor, have you gone mad? It's just a dress. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? If Ash likes it, I'll pay you back. I can afford it. What a joke. Just as I was about to speak, Ash came out of the dressing room. Even though she was holding her breath and trying hard to squeeze into the dress, she still couldn't carry herself with elegance. She glanced down and quickly tried to smooth things over. This dress is too small and doesn't suit me. Before she could finish, there was a loud pop. The entire dress came apart at the seams, with a large tear at the waist. Seeing my mother's gift ruined, my eyes turned red, and I rushed forward and slapped Ash across the face. I used all my strength, and my palm went numb. Her left cheek quickly swelled up, clearly showing 5 fingerprints, looking rather comical. But even so, the hatred and anger in my heart did not diminish in the slightest. Ash covered her face and began to sob, Miss Ellie, it's my fault for ruining your dress. You were right to hit me. I shouldn't have cried. She said she shouldn't cry, but the next second, she cried even harder. Shindek felt so sorry for her that he hurried forward, pulled her into his arms, and coaxed her. Good girl, don't cry. When you cry, I feel so sorry for you. Don't worry, I'm here. I'll get back everything you've been wronged. Ash stopped crying immediately and asked with teary eyes, really? Shindek didn't say anything, but his cold gaze pierced me like he wanted to tear me apart. Eleanor, apologize. I sneered. She ruined my mother's only piece of clothing, and he actually wants me to apologize? There's no such thing in this world. What if I refuse? My voice was indifferent, but firm and unwavering. Shindek gritted his teeth, tightened his grip on Ash's waist, and glared at me with a sneer. Don't be ungrateful. I'm giving you face now. If you keep this up, even if you beg me on your knees to take you back, I won't agree. I smiled faintly at his words, picked up the coffee cup beside me, and threw it with all my strength. A shriek rang out. Shindek and Ash were covered in coffee stains from head to toe, looking like 2 spotted dogs. Shindek flew into a rage and rushed forward, raising his hand high. I closed my eyes in fear, but the next second, the slap didn't come. Instead, a low male voice came from beside me. Eleanor, aren't you going to see Ben? I was startled and opened my eyes to see a face similar to Shindek's. It was Benjamin. He was holding Shindek back, but his face was filled with joy. Even though they were twins, I could tell the difference between them at a glance. Shindek had a devilish and reckless temperament, with the danger and mystery of a bad boy. Benjamin was completely the opposite, with a dignified and proper demeanor, looking like a business executive. Before I could say anything, Shindek's surprised voice rang out, Big brother, how did you come back? I heard from Mom that you were busy with an acquisition case abroad. Benjamin turned around and smiled slightly. I'm back to get married. He glanced at me with a burning gaze, his expression meaningful. I suddenly felt a little panicked and quickly averted my gaze. At this moment, Shindek hadn't connected the two of us yet and sneered, which girl is this? Do I know her? Not only do you know her, you know her very well. Shindek was about to ask again when Ash, who was standing nearby, objected. She tugged at the man's sleeve, looking aggrieved. Seeing this, Shindek patted his head and said graciously to me, I'm in a good mood today, so for my brother's sake, I won't hold it against you. But next time you bully her, we'll have to settle this. I sneered. Shindek, don't get it wrong. Today, I'm not going to pursue this with you guys. That slap is compensation for the dress. Control your people and don't go around biting people. Take off the dress. Now. He was about to say something else, but Benjamin's words, Dad is meeting a client nearby, scared him into changing his expression. He pulled Ash away and hurriedly left the crowd. When the dress was brought out, I sighed regretfully. Benjamin seemed to know what I was thinking. After hesitating for a moment, he said apologetically, I'm sorry, Declan is always so inconsiderate. I'll find a way to replace the dress. He paused, his expression a bit awkward. Don't worry about the wedding dress. I had Tiffany design a few for you. They should be your style. I was touched but also puzzled. How did you know I liked Tiffany's designs? Tiffany was a brand I'd been following since college, but I'd never mentioned it to anyone except in December. How did Benjamin know? Hearing this, the corners of his mouth curved into a smile, and he looked at me meaningfully. You'll find out after we get married. That night, Benjamin sent me home. Dad was very happy to see him and insisted on chatting with him for a while. They even had a few drinks. During that time, Mr. Shin called to confirm the date of the ceremony with Dad. Before leaving, he went upstairs to say goodbye to me. I was planning to come back on your birthday, but something unexpected came up and I couldn't make it. I'll definitely be there for your next birthday. His face looked so handsome in the light that my heart started racing. I swallowed hard and pretended to be angry. Why next birthday? Shouldn't it be forever? Hearing this, he smiled brightly, his eyes sparkling. Right. Forever. Until his figure disappeared outside the Yu family mansion, I was still a little dazed. Ben is back. I'm getting married? In the days that followed, Benjamin and I took our wedding photos, and thanks to the power of money, we saw the photos the next day. With the wedding date approaching, Dad and Uncle Shin used our wedding photos to invite people to the wedding on WeChat. That night, Shindek, who had been missing for several days, called to confront me. You're so shameless, using AI-generated wedding photos to deceive people on WeChat moments. Do you really want to marry me that badly? I rolled my eyes in disbelief and sarcastically retorted. Shindek, why don't you take a look at yourself? What makes you think I'd marry anyone but you? Shindek flew into a rage upon hearing this. You've done enough stupid things for me. Ever since we were kids, you've been clinging to me like you're going to die if I leave you. I've always wondered what it is about me that attracts you. Can't I change? I burst out laughing. I advised him earnestly, there's a limit to how much you can talk nonsense. If you go too far, you'll make a fool of yourself. Shindek, I'll say it one last time. I never wanted to marry you. Shindek paused for a moment, then asked slowly, then who do you want to marry? It's none of your business. You don't even deserve to ask. With that, I hung up the phone. The night before the wedding, it happened to be Mr. Shin's birthday, so my father and I brought gifts to celebrate. At the banquet, Benjamin sat next to me and served me food and water. Across the table, Shindek saw us laughing and chatting and his face turned as black as a pot bottom. After a while, he sent me a message, why are you still clinging to the Shaws? I'm ignoring you, so you're harassing my brother? Give up. He doesn't like you. I raised my eyebrows curiously and typed, how do you know? Shindek replied, my brother is very picky. If I don't like a woman, how could he possibly pick up a trashy girl like you? I stared at the words trash for about 10 minutes. After a long time, I gritted my teeth and locked the screen. Benjamin squeezed my palm tightly and smiled at me. Dad saw that Benjamin and I were whispering to each other and seemed to get along well, so he was in a good mood and drank a few more cups. Mr. Shin immediately joked, hey, son-in-law, save some wine for the wedding day. We still need to discuss the wedding details today, and you can't get drunk. Dad smiled and nodded, you're right. In 2 days, my daughter will become a Shah. Seeing that both families were already calling each other in-laws, if they didn't stop, this would turn into a big incident. Shindek felt a bit anxious and timidly opened his mouth, Dad, I'm still young. I don't want to get married so early. Mr. Shin snapped angrily. Who are you to speak here? Mind your own business. Go stand over there. Shindek had always been afraid of his father, so he immediately cowered when scolded by Mr. Shin and could only glare at me with a fierce look, signaling me to say something. I acted like nothing was wrong and ignored him. He was just a mad dog. Why bother with him? Seeing that I kept my eyes down and didn't say anything, Shindek was both angry and anxious, but he didn't dare to pick a fight with me in front of our parents, so he could only keep sending me messages. If you don't say something, our 2 families will be the ones who lose face. Eleanor, come out and say something. I swear I'll give you a child. I smiled sarcastically and pretended not to see him, continuing to talk to Uncle Shin. We've already taken our wedding photos and taken care of all the paperwork. We'll just have the ceremony in 2 days. Thank you for all your hard work, Uncle and Aunt Shin. I put on a sweet expression and smiled shyly. The Shaw's parents saw this and burst into laughter. They teased, now you're calling us Uncle and Aunt, but in 2 days you'll have to start calling us Dad and Mom. Shindek heard this and widened his eyes, the veins on his hand bulging. He tried to speak several times but couldn't. Finally, he seemed to think of something and said in a hoarse voice, Mom and Dad, don't listen to her. I can't marry this woman. I don't like her. She's not good enough for me. As soon as he said this, the lively dinner party fell silent. Mr. Shin was so angry that he slammed his chopsticks down on the table. What nonsense are you talking about? Ellie is your sister-in-law. How can you be so rude? Shindek stared blankly for a moment, then asked in disbelief, sister-in-law? What sister-in-law? Mrs. Shaw was afraid that Mr. Shin would lose his temper and start arguing again, so she immediately explained to him. Ellie and your brother have already obtained their marriage certificate. It's only proper for you to call her your older sister-in-law. Don't worry, your wedding isn't coming anytime soon. To ease the awkwardness at the dinner table, Uncle Shin picked up his wine glass and toasted Dad, old you, we're destined to be in-laws, there's no escaping it. Benjamin finally looked at Shindek with a meaningful expression and repeated. It's me and Ellie who are getting married, not you. The next second, Shindek suddenly stood up, his face filled with shock. How is that possible? She clearly. He didn't get to finish his sentence before Benjamin interrupted him. She's clearly your sister-in-law. You'll have to watch what you say in the future. What's all this fuss about? Sit down and eat. You're always causing trouble. With a scolding from Uncle Shin, Shindek reluctantly shut his mouth and sat down dejectedly. Seeing that his younger son had finally calmed down and hadn't caused any trouble, Uncle Shin relaxed and resumed discussing the wedding banquet guest list with Dad. Meanwhile, Shindek's messages kept coming through across the table. It was so annoying that I had to turn off my phone immediately. After the banquet ended, Benjamin drove Dad and me home, but when we arrived, Shindek was getting out of another car. Benjamin looked very unhappy. Dad and I exchanged glances and told him to take Shindek into the house for a cup of tea. I looked at Shindek calmly and asked, what are you doing at my house? You're marrying my brother? Why? He was unusually red-eyed, and there was even a hint of grievance in his tone. I told you long ago that I'm not marrying you. He stepped forward, grabbed my wrist tightly, and asked harshly, how is that possible? Without me, you can't live. I shook off his hand and sneered coldly, don't flatter yourself. I've always loved your brother. You're just a substitute. Now that the real one is back, do I still need to suck up to you? What a joke. Shindek shook his head firmly, a wounded expression fleeting across his eyes. He muttered to himself, it's impossible. You've always loved me. In our previous life, we even got married. What does he have to do with this? In an instant, he seemed to come to a realization and spoke softly to me. Ellie, I know you're just throwing a tantrum. But a wedding isn't a game. Stop this nonsense. Cancel the wedding with my brother immediately, and I'll marry you. I stood there in shock for a moment before finally bursting into laughter. You'll marry me? What about Ash? He scratched his head and said confidently, Ash isn't as stubborn as you. I'll marry you, but I won't abandon her. She can have children when she wants to, and you mustn't bully her. With my status, I'm destined to have more than one woman. I furrowed my brows, and suddenly heard Benjamin's words from a few days ago, Ellie, you're the only one for me in this lifetime. I don't care about your past, I just want to hold on to your future. They have such similar faces, they're family, yet their personalities are completely different. I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't want to think about it anymore. Get lost, Shindek. You're not the man I want to marry. Don't bother me anymore. Take care of your golden canary, metaphor for his mistress. With that, I turned to leave, but Shindek was still clinging to me. I was so angry that I slapped him across the face, stunning him. It was a cold night with a biting wind. After a while, Benjamin came up from behind and put a coat on me, while Shindek stood nearby, looking wronged and complaining. Big brother, this woman hit me. Benjamin sneered, your sister-in-law is like your mother, you deserve it. Shindek, I'll say it again, Eleanor is my woman, don't you dare lay a finger on her again. Next time, it won't be as simple as a slap. I have plenty of ways to deal with you. Since I had known him, I had never seen him change his expression. But at this moment, his expression was cold and his eyes were deep, and his whole body was surrounded by a terrifying aura. But Shindek was like a madman, refusing to give up and making a scene, his face contorted with rage. You've always been better than me at everything, and now you won't even leave my woman alone. You want to fight me for her? But don't you forget, she's just a worn-out slut. His voice was cut short as Benjamin kicked him hard, sending him crashing to the ground. I watched coldly, not trying to stop them. Instead, I wished he would kick him a few more times, even harder. Benjamin seemed to hear my thoughts and kicked him several more times, leaving Shindek lying on the ground, unable to get up. Seeing that if I didn't stop him, Mrs. Shaw would look bad, I finally called him off. Do you want me to take you to the hospital? Shindek looked up sharply at the sound of my voice, but when he saw me nervously looking up and down at Benjamin, his eyes darkened completely. I didn't pay any attention to Shindek's departing figure, only thinking about explaining things to Benjamin. There's nothing between us. After hesitating for a moment, I could only manage to say that. The next second, the man's low laugh came. I know, I don't mind. I didn't know if it was because his gaze was making me dizzy or if I had drunk too much tonight, but my heart was pounding. I continued, I'm saving the best for my future husband. Benjamin's breathing became erratic upon hearing this, and after a long pause, he said hoarsely, Wan, there are only 2 days left. Wait for me. My face flushed, and I instinctively protested, that's not what I meant. But as soon as I raised my eyes, I met his smiling gaze and turned away in embarrassment, ignoring the man behind me who was laughing wildly. I thought that once we had talked things out, Shindek would no longer bother me. But his attitude completely changed. First, he announced my wedding in the entire Hong Kong social circle, then hinted in different groups that I couldn't have him and that he had found his older brother as a substitute. He said he was worried that my promiscuous personality would cause his older brother to be cuckolded in the future. This caused all my friends to send me messages asking, Wan, you're the one who came up with this plan. It's really good. In my opinion, Benjamin is much better than Declan. Not only does he hold the power of the Shaws, but he can also make money. Wan, you're playing both sides. The Shaws brothers are doomed for meeting you. I was speechless, but I couldn't say anything about it. After all, I was blind before and fell for December. Perhaps out of guilt, I became more proactive in spending time with Benjamin, and after a while, I realized that we shared many of the same hobbies. We both liked drinking Coke and watching movies at home, and we both preferred burgers without ketchup. The more time we spent together, the more familiar we felt. He even helped me fix the dress my mom left me. At that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice in him. After Shindek tried all his tricks in the social circle and saw that I still wasn't paying attention to him, he finally panicked. The next day, at a friend's party, he came after me again. Wan, I've thought it through. Women need to save face. Since you can't bring yourself to do it, I'll be the one to make you happy. Cancel the wedding with my brother. Let's have a ceremony, and we'll forget about the past. Everyone at the scene was stunned, falling into an awkward silence. At that moment, a jealous female voice came from behind. Shindek, if you're going to marry her, what about me? Guash slowly walked forward, her stomach slightly tucked in. Our child is already so big. Do you want us to die together? Shindek's face turned pale. He wanted to explain to me and calm Guash down at the same time, but he was at a loss. He was so anxious that beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Some acquaintances of the Shaws stared in amazement. This guy isn't even married yet, and Declan already has a child? This is really not right. The second son of the Shaws has always been irresponsible. In my opinion, the Yu family girl made a wise choice by choosing Benjamin instead of him. This girl is also irresponsible, getting someone pregnant before marriage. She has no family values, no shame. The crowd's chatter reached Guash's ears. Her already uneasy emotions became even more agitated. She suddenly rushed forward, grabbed my sleeve, and cried and shouted, "It's all your fault, you bitch. If you hadn't schemed behind my back, how could he have treated me so coldly? I looked at her gradually going mad and was at a loss for words. In my previous life, Shindek had been secretly involved with her for decades right under my nose, and she was the big winner. In this life, I let them be together, but she couldn't hold on to him and instead blamed me. Thinking of this, a cold smile appeared on my lips, and I leaned close to her ear and whispered. You're overthinking it. Only you would treasure such a scumbag. Even if you gave him to me, I'd still despise him for being a man-whore, slang. I don't know which word triggered Gouache, but she pushed me hard in anger, only to fall to the ground herself due to momentum. At that moment, we were on a small staircase, and she rolled down a few steps. With a scream, she fell with her lower body exposed. All eyes were on her, and people whispered, at this stage of pregnancy, the baby is definitely lost. That's right, it's better this way. At least Mrs. Shin won't have to worry anymore. Gouache looked at the pool of blood on the ground and screamed in panic, Shindek, save me. Save our baby. Shindek gave me a deep look, then quickly took her to the hospital. On the day Benjamin and I got married, the venue was filled with guests and the sound of clinking glasses. I was satisfied with Shindek's absence. Although it wasn't appropriate to say so, I didn't want my once-in-a-lifetime wedding to be ruined by anyone, especially Declan, my husband. After my father escorted me to the stage, I looked up at the person standing beside me and smiled sweetly. Just as the MC was about to begin, the door was pushed open. Another groom in a white wedding suit appeared, walking slowly toward the stage, even smiling and calling my name, Wan, come to me. At that moment, all the guests looked at each other in confusion. I looked at the person in front of me, then at the person beside me, and felt confused for a moment. Usually, the two brothers had different personalities, and with their different outfits, it was easy to tell them apart. But today, they were both wearing the same wedding attire, with the same hairstyles and shoes. It was difficult to tell them apart. The Shah's parents were also stunned. They never imagined that their youngest son would do this at his wedding. The Shahs lost all face and immediately scolded him, Shindek, if you keep this up, you won't get a penny of the inheritance. They didn't think that threatening him with his inheritance would make the fake groom reveal himself. However, neither of them responded, and their expressions didn't change in the slightest. Mrs. Shah immediately collapsed to the ground, her cries shaking the heavens. It's all my fault. If I hadn't spoiled him so much, how could he have done something so reckless? I furrowed my brows slightly and walked toward the people in front of me. The groom beside me remained calm, while the other groom, who had arrived later, wore a smug smile. Wan, I knew you still loved me. I pretended not to hear him and asked a question. 8 years ago, at my birthday party, what gift did you give me? He froze upon hearing this, his eyes darting nervously. After a moment, he mumbled, it's been too long, I forgot. I nodded, said nothing, and turned to ask the other groom. After a moment, he said loudly, I gave you a box of go. I bit my lip, tears welling up in my eyes, and turned to Benjamin, taking his hand. I said to Shindek, stop fooling around. Wish me and your brother a happy marriage. Shindek stared at me in disbelief, his eyes red as he shouted. No, you love me, you love me. In our past life, it was us who got married. He shouted incoherently, but Shin's father had already sent his bodyguards to take him away. The wedding was finally able to proceed as planned. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and Benjamin and I smiled at each other. Miss Eleanor, will you marry Benjamin as his wife? Will you stay with him forever, give him your whole heart, and be completely loyal to him? Thinking of the tragic ending of my previous life, I nodded firmly with tears in my eyes. I do. Benjamin and I exchanged wedding rings, finally becoming a legally married couple. That night, after making love, he suddenly spoke up, his mind elsewhere. Did you notice? I hummed in response. He laughed softly and explained after a moment, that was probably the first time we met. My mother had originally brought Shindek to your house, but that boy was playing around, so I pretended to be him. Seattle, the Shaws all know that the one following dad is the eldest son, and the one following mom is the youngest son. I also mistakenly recognized you as Shin December. He smiled silently and pulled me closer to him. In the end, we ended up together. I hugged him tightly and closed my eyes. Although Benjamin and my wedding didn't go smoothly, the Shaws still had problems. Gouache was sent to the hospital, where she had a miscarriage due to heavy bleeding and damaged her uterus, leaving her unable to have children in the future. A young girl in the prime of her life, with no identity or background, had lost her right to bear children. Her competitiveness in the marriage market had been reduced by half. The Gu family was already a poor and declining family with few children. Upon hearing the doctor's words, they immediately blamed the Gu family. "You ruined my daughter. I won't let this go. Either you marry her or give us 10 million. Otherwise, we'll see you in court." Gu's mother made a bold statement, vowing to sue the Gu family. Given the Gu family's influence in Seattle, suing them was clearly impossible, but if this news were to be reported by the media, the Gu family's reputation and public image would indeed be tarnished. The instigator, Shindek, had disappeared. It was said that Shin's uncle had locked him in a room and confiscated all his communication devices. Even so, after being discharged from the hospital, Gu Ash still came to the Gu family. She carried a fruit knife with her and insisted that Shindek marry her and give her a grand wedding. As she spoke, she fiercely dug at me. It was as if I was the one who got her pregnant and caused her to be unable to give birth. "Everything Eleanor has, I want too. If you don't give me everything, I'll make sure everyone knows about your family's dirty secrets. I'll see how you Shaws live your lives from now on." The Shaw's parents exchanged glances, looking at the crazy woman in front of them with difficulty. After a moment, Mrs. Shaw asked, "Shiryen, what do you think?" The man under the lamp, elegant and dignified, didn't hesitate for a moment. "Give her 10 million to keep her mouth shut and send Shindek abroad." Mrs. Shaw was speechless upon hearing this. But the next day, Mrs. Shaw made the decision to marry Gu Ash into the family. Benjamin and I had no objections. We only discussed with Uncle Shin that the overseas group's business was gradually increasing within the group, and the main business needed to be expanded overseas. We would be going abroad for a while. Uncle Shin nodded in agreement, and Mrs. Shaw muttered a few words. But when she thought of her second son, she also shut her mouth. 2 years later, Benjamin and I settled in Country F, and I brought Dad over as well. Most of the Yu family's business was transferred overseas, with a small portion left to be managed by executives. By this time, Benjamin had already started his own business. In order to avoid any connection with Shindek in China, the net profit of his startup was already several times that of the Shaws. So when Mrs. Shaw asked him to give up his inheritance rights to the Shaws, he had no objections. But just a few years later, after Uncle Shin passed away, Mrs. Shaw was lying in the hospital in a coma. Under Shindek's leadership, the Shaws in China went downhill. The money in the company accounts was embezzled and taken away by Gu Ash. Shindek was reported for tax evasion and sent to the police station. Within a few years, he developed mental illness in prison and contemplated suicide. It is said that before his death, he kept muttering, "In my previous life, I clearly married her and lived until the end. Why am I in prison this time? It must be a dream, it must be a dream." End. Reborn. Back to the moment before the car accident. This time I ignored Toby's cries for help. I chose to save his quiet older brother instead. "Liz, why didn't you save me this time?" Toby was stuck in the driver's seat, stunned. I glanced at him and sneered inwardly. As everyone knows, I was in love with Toby. In my previous life, after I saved him, he had to marry me out of gratitude. After we got married, he hated me with a passion, believing that I was taking advantage of him and conspiring with his white moonlight to have me locked up in a mental hospital. It wasn't until I died that I realized that forced love is never sweet. In this new life, I took the initiative to stay away from him. But when his brother and I got our marriage certificate, Toby went crazy. After Roy was sent to, retained without replacement, for treatment, Toby was also rescued by his beloved Jiang Giselle. He was lucky to only suffer minor scratches. Seeing me rushing over anxiously, he rolled his eyes in contempt and curled his lips into a cold smile. "You say you don't care about me, but you're just following me like a dog. Sis, even if you wanted to catch Nanqing's attention, you shouldn't have risked Toby's life. If I hadn't arrived in time, Nanqing would have been in serious trouble." Jiang Giselle shot me a sideways glance, as if she wanted to crawl all over Toby. Her eyebrows were filled with contempt for me. But her words were full of self-praise. She was my father's illegitimate daughter, and we had never gotten along since we were little. But we both fell in love with Toby at the same time. We hated each other so much that we wanted to kill each other. I was in a hurry to find a doctor to check on Roy's injuries and didn't want to deal with her. As I passed by her, someone grabbed my hand forcefully. Toby furrowed his brow, and the smile on his lips vanished in an instant. Keep pretending. If you keep it up, I'll marry Giselle. I thought of how they had thrown me into a mental hospital in my previous life and tortured me to death. The anger in my heart was uncontrollable. I stared intently at his arrogant expression and said coldly, "Whatever. You?" Toby's eyes narrowed, and he looked surprised for a moment. He looked me over for a moment, then laughed mockingly. "You're just being stubborn. Don't cry when the time comes." The sound of footsteps grew louder as they approached. Song's father hurried over, retained as is, and, upon learning that the two Song brothers were safe, finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Liz, you have done us a great favor, and our two families are old friends. Rest assured, I will make sure that Nanqing marries you." Song's father thanked me sincerely. "No, I don't want to marry Toby." Before I could finish, Toby snorted lightly. A mocking smile appeared on his lips. "I knew you were going to use my parents to pressure me. Enough, stop pretending. If you don't marry me, are you going to marry my brother, that blockhead?" His voice seemed to come from his nose, full of contempt. He had always looked down on Roy. He never took him seriously in front of others. Mr. G also thought that Roy was insignificant and couldn't carry the weight of the Song family, so he had always looked down on him. But I knew that Roy wasn't as useless as they thought. "Nanqing, don't always tease Liz. Girls are sensitive. She is the legitimate daughter of the Young family. It's a great match for you." G's father's expression darkened. He glanced meaningfully at Jiang Giselle. Her status as an illegitimate daughter was completely beneath Song's father. "Nanqing." The humiliation made Jiang Giselle feel extremely wronged. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red. She cowered helplessly behind Toby. "Dad, say something." Toby couldn't bear to see her looking so wronged. He glared at me, his eyes full of arrogance. "I'm not saying I won't marry you, but when we have children, they must be IVF, and we must use Giselle's eggs." I was so angry I laughed. My expression suddenly turned cold, and I swept my mocking gaze over them. "You're delusional. How dare you?" Jiang Giselle thought I was scolding her and immediately started crying. "Giselle, don't cry. I'm here, and no one can bully you. I agreed to marry Liz, but my heart has always been with you." Toby was so worried that he fumbled around. He hugged her and kissed her tears away. But his gaze secretly darted toward me, carrying a warning. I didn't bother looking at their lovey-dovey antics and turned to run upstairs. But I was told by a nurse that Roy had already been discharged. Ever since Li Chuan's mother passed away, retained as is, he has been very resistant, retained as is. It's already very rare that he listened to you and came to, retained as is, bandage his wound this time. Song's father also followed over. He wasn't surprised by this result. He just looked at me thoughtfully, as if he had figured something out. Unable to see Roy, I could only go home first. Downstairs at home, I saw Toby's flashy red race car. He was pressing Jiang Giselle against the hood of the car and kissing her passionately. "The Young family's property is all with Sis. You have to promise me that after you help me get Sis's property, you'll divorce her and marry me. Don't make me wait too long like in my previous life." Jiang Giselle hooked her arms around his neck and batted her eyes seductively. Toby, however, seemed somewhat distracted. "Let's talk about it later." Hearing this, I sucked in a breath of cold air. They had also been reborn. I composed myself and quickly walked past them. The ambiguous kissing sounds paused for a moment, and Toby's voice clearly reached my ears. "Giselle, would you like me to give you this sports car?" "Really? Nanqing is so good to me." I remembered that shortly after we got married in my previous life. It was because he gave this sports car to Jiang Giselle that I became jealous and smashed the car with a rock. Toby used the excuse that I was sick and forcibly sent me to a mental hospital. I frowned and continued walking. Toby grabbed me and stared intently into my eyes. "Liz, I'm giving the car to Giselle. What do you think? The color suits her well." Without thinking, I said with a smile. Hearing this, Toby's expression changed, and he remained silent for a long time before speaking with suppressed anger. "There's a dinner party at my company next week. I'll let you be my date." I snorted, pulled my hand away from his, and turned to walk into the courtyard. "I'm busy." I'll see how long you can keep this up." He was so angry he jumped up and down. But it didn't affect my mood. I was actually looking forward to next week's party. Normally, Roy would definitely attend such a dinner party. On the day of the dinner party, I dressed up carefully and arrived early at the banquet hall to look for Roy. As soon as I entered the hall, I felt a sharp gaze on me. Before I had a chance to look around, I heard Toby's arrogant and mocking voice. "Tisk, TSK, you said you wouldn't come, but here you are. What can I say about you? It's interesting how you say one thing and mean another." Toby was chatting with a group of friends, and the moment he saw me, his eyes lit up. I don't know what he whispered to Jeong Giselle beside him. Jeong Giselle glared at me resentfully and left reluctantly. "Miss Liz, you really are persistent. Haha, maybe Mr. Song will be a henpecked husband in the future." Seeing this, the spoiled brats around him surrounded us and teased us. I pushed them away irritably and said angrily, "Go away, I'm not here to see him." Dressed like that, if you're not here for me, who else could you be here for? "Fine, I know you're shy, so I'll be kind and let you be my date." Toby sneered at me and held out his hand as if he were doing me a favor. His friends laughed loudly, as if I were a clown. Even the best temper would be worn down. I stopped in my tracks and turned around. "If you can't understand what people are saying, go see a doctor. I told you I wasn't here to see you, but you insist on making yourself look good. Everyone knows that a man can only bring one female companion. You're forcing me to be your date, but what about Jeong Giselle? Can you bear to watch her get kicked out by security?" My voice wasn't loud, but it was just loud enough for Jeong Giselle, who was not far away, to hear. Already feeling wronged, she heard what I said and immediately started crying. Toby opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. "Nanqing, can you really do this?" The intense humiliation made Jeong Giselle unable to lift her head. Her face was completely pale as she covered her face and ran out crying. "Liz, we're sisters, you're being so cruel." Toby finally came to his senses. He only had time to scold me before rushing out after her. Once they were gone, I felt the air was much fresher. But that burning gaze was still following me. Looking left and right, I saw Roy sitting on the second-floor railing. I don't know if it was my imagination. When I looked at him, the gaze on me disappeared for some reason. Seeing him get up to leave, I hurriedly ran up to the second floor and stopped him. "Roy, wait. What are you doing here? Nanqing is chasing another woman, he's not here." He frowned, seemingly displeased at being stopped. But he still patiently explained to me. I was panting from running and nodded firmly. "I came here to find you. Anyway, the Jiang and Song families will eventually be married, so I choose you." Roy didn't react much after hearing this. But his tightly clenched hands betrayed his inner excitement. He slowly raised his head and looked at me, his deep eyes filled with obscure emotions. "Why?" Looking at his tall figure, my eyes reddened. The image of the person I saw before I died in my previous life floated into my mind. "Why are you crying? I didn't mean to scare you." Roy's indifferent eyes flashed with panic. He approached me awkwardly and spoke nervously. I wiped my tears and didn't plan on telling him yet. I pulled him back to his seat. "I'm fine. Just tell me if you'll agree or not. You know that Toby's heart isn't with me. He only agreed to marry me because of the Young family's wealth. So, I'll marry you, and you'll protect me. How about we split the family fortune in half?" Roy still didn't say anything, just looked me up and down with a scrutinizing gaze. She took a sip of tea before slowly opening her mouth. "Why do you trust me so much? Aren't you afraid I'll take all your wealth? After all, the Young family is so wealthy, and many people have their eyes on it." His tone was calm, as if what I said didn't interest him at all. I was surprised that the young master of the Song family would break his usual silence and say so much to me. Even with Song's father, he had never been this patient. I couldn't help but feel a wave of warmth rise in my heart. I smiled slightly, as bright as a spring flower. "I'm not afraid. You're not that kind of person. You Roy was taken aback and couldn't help but stare. He then laughed softly. Okay. Having settled things with him, I was so excited that I grabbed his hand. All right, I'll come find you on Valentine's Day to get married. I remember the warmth of those hands. They were the hands that buried me in my previous life. For a while after that, Toby came to my house frequently. He never came inside, just stood below my window and flirted with young Giselle. He said things like good brother and babe in a sarcastic tone. It made my ears bleed. I knew he was provoking me. But I didn't even bother to respond to his childish behavior. On Valentine's Day, he drove up to my house in a brand new sports car. Giselle, it's Valentine's Day. I have a surprise for you. Let's go. He deliberately looked in my direction and raised his voice as he spoke. Young Giselle didn't notice his little gesture and sat in the car with a happy look on her face. After his car left, I drove to the Song family's house. Unexpectedly, I ran into them at the entrance of the Song family's house. Toby leaned lazily against the door and glanced at me disdainfully. Liz, you finally couldn't stand it anymore, huh? I just took Giselle away, and you followed right behind me. I thought you had some backbone, but it's nothing special. All right, you wait here. I'll take Giselle to my room to talk about something. He hummed a song smugly as he wrapped his arm around young Giselle and went upstairs. Young Giselle pretended to be shy and pushed him away. Goofball, sis is watching. Who cares about her? She's the one who's so high and mighty. I won't feel good if I don't knock her down a peg. The self-righteousness of these two left me speechless. If I had known they were coming to the Song family, I would have left later. An hour later, Toby finally came downstairs, hugging young Giselle, who was so weak she could barely stand. He looked around but didn't see me. His face gradually darkened, and he pushed young Giselle away and turned into the living room. Dad, where did Liz go? I told her to wait for me downstairs, but now she's gone. He was clearly in a bad mood. His expression was terrible. Song's father looked up from his newspaper and looked at him in confusion. Liz went to get her marriage certificate with your brother. Didn't you know? Liz really isn't marrying me? He jumped up from the sofa, his eyes wide. Finally realizing the seriousness of the situation, he turned and ran outside. Nanqing, you're in such a hurry, ouch. Jiang Giselle wanted to say something to him, but he pushed her hard to the ground. Roy and I were holding hands and returning from getting our marriage certificate when we ran into Toby at the door. He stopped abruptly, his gaze falling on the red book in my hand. His expression changed instantly, and his eyes shot fire. Liz, why don't you like me anymore? In our previous life, you couldn't live without me. Are you using my brother to make me jealous? He mentioned our previous life out of the blue, and I didn't know how to explain it to Roy. After all, who would believe something as unbelievable as rebirth? As I was hesitating, Roy let go of my hand first. He smiled bitterly and turned away, looking desolate. You two talk. I'm going upstairs. I knew he had misunderstood. But right now, I had to talk to Toby. Toby, we've both been reborn. You know what you did to me in your previous life. How can you think I would still like you? What do you have that I would like? Since you like Jiang Giselle, I'll let you have her this lifetime. Look, she's staring at you longingly from behind you. Why are you bothering me now? I thought I had made myself clear. But Toby just looked stunned for a moment, then smiled faintly as if he had suddenly understood. So you're jealous. You want to get back at me by using my brother to hurt me. But you're using the wrong method. I could never accept a woman who's been married before. Liz, missing out on me will be the biggest regret of your life. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him anymore. I walked past him and entered the Song family's residence. Because Roy and I were getting married today, Mr. Song had specially asked me to stay for dinner. Halfway through the meal, Toby finally led Jiang Giselle in. They must have gone shopping. Jiang Giselle was carrying large bags, all of them luxury brands. Song's father glanced indifferently at the smug look on her face, his expression darkening as he slammed his chopsticks down on the table. I'm full. After Mr. Song went upstairs to rest, Toby acted as if nothing had happened and sat across from me with his arm around Jiang Giselle. He opened each of the jewelry boxes he had bought in front of me. He glanced at me secretly and smiled mockingly. Liz, I told you you'd regret it. What's so good about following a blockhead? You're not well liked at work, and you're so broke you can't even afford a decent piece of jewelry. Look, I just went out for a stroll and spent thousands without even batting an eye. That's the difference, you understand? Sis, congratulations to you and Mr. Roy. I wish you 100 years of happiness. Jiang Giselle tried on the jewelry with a smile. Her eyebrows showed her contempt and mockery toward me. I ignored everything they said. But I had to take care of Roy's feelings. He kept his head down, but I could clearly see the malice in his eyes. I reached under the table and gently squeezed his clenched fist. He looked up in confusion, his eyes glistening. I smiled silently at him and calmly took out the share transfer agreement from my bag. Li Chuan, I am giving you half of my shares. Please take care of me for the rest of my life. Roy looked up suddenly, his expression shocked. But he couldn't suppress the smile on his lips. Liz, are you really willing to? Before Roy could finish, Toby stood up excitedly, knocking his chair to the floor with a loud crash. Liz, are you serious? He stared at me, his pupils constricting. After a long time, Toby finally found his voice. As if compromising, he smiled bitterly. I give up. Let's not hurt each other anymore, okay? I'll allow you to have children for me, is that okay? He turned his gaze to Jiang Giselle. A hint of struggle flashed in his eyes, but he still made the painful decision. From now on, I'll try to reduce my chances of seeing Giselle and try to be a good husband. Jiang Giselle's eyes were already teary. Hearing that he wouldn't even see her, she finally couldn't help but cry out. Heartbroken, she asked him loudly. Nanqing, you don't want me anymore? Why are you so different from before? You were always distracted when we were on dates, even going through the motions. You only showed affection when Sis was around. Oh my God, you wouldn't happen to like. Jiang Giselle seemed to think of something and gasped. Toby stopped her with a glance. She followed his gaze and looked at the share agreement in my hand. In an instant, she understood. She shot me a hateful glance, gritted her teeth in resentment, and ran out crying. This time, Toby didn't chase after her. The atmosphere in the living room was strangely heavy. He took a step forward and grabbed my hand. A complex light flashed in his eyes. Liz, maybe I do like you. You can't give these shares to him. I was stunned by his words. He actually said he liked me? Cough, I'm full too. Roy coughed lightly, his gaze on our tightly clasped hands. In an instant, his eyes darkened, tinged with self-mockery. He hurriedly got up and left the living room, his back shrouded in the night outside, looking particularly despondent. Roy! I panicked and forcefully broke free from Toby's hand. But the more I shouted, the faster Roy walked away. Angry and embarrassed, I turned to Toby behind me and shouted angrily. Listen carefully, I don't like you anymore, don't flatter yourself. Liz, I know I was too much in my previous life, but later I realized my feelings for you. When I heard the news of your death in the mental hospital, I wasn't. Toby kept chasing after me. I lost my patience and interrupted him. Enough, the past is the past. We've been reborn, and I hope we can live our lives without interfering with each other. Now I'm just your sister-in-law. I deliberately raised my voice for the last sentence. Roy, who was walking ahead, suddenly stopped in his tracks. His frown gradually relaxed, and his eyes lit up. Liz? He tentatively reached out his hand to me, his eyes sparkling with laughter. I smiled and placed my hand in his palm. Toby couldn't help but freeze in place, his face turning as pale as a sheet of paper, his eyes filled with confusion and anger. He muttered, Liz, you don't love me anymore? I didn't turn around and followed Roy into the courtyard to take a walk. Roy, listen to me. Since I've decided to marry you, I won't do anything to hurt you. You can keep this share agreement. As for Toby, I can only say that it's in the past. I don't like him anymore. I put the agreement back into his hand. I assured him with the most serious tone I could muster. After a long time, Roy finally held my hand back. He curved his lips, his eyebrows and eyes softening. I believe you. After that night, our relationship grew rapidly. I often went to Song Group to wait for him to get off work, and we would eat together. Once, I found a suspicious document in his office. Out of curiosity, I opened the document. I found evidence that Toby's mother had killed Roy's biological mother. The more I read, the more frightened I became. His reserved demeanor was all an act. The Song family's recent financial crises, big and small, were all his doing. He was taking revenge on the Song family for his mother. What a deep mind he had. What was I to him? The thought of how hastily we had gotten married sent a chill down my spine. Snap. The office door was pushed open. Roy stood at the doorway, his sharp eyes narrowed, emitting a fierce glare. Clatter. My hand went limp, and the documents fell to the ground. Li Chuan, I didn't mean to peek. Being stared at like that, I couldn't help but feel nervous. I lowered my head, not daring to look at him again. In an instant, he walked over and pulled me into his arms. He rested his chin on my forehead and sighed helplessly. You found out after all. Don't be afraid of me. I won't hurt you. I endured humiliation and hardship in the Song family just to avenge my mother. Liz, you're an exception. I didn't marry you for your family's shares. I just wanted the opportunity to take care of you. You probably don't know this, but I've liked you for a long time. He gently pushed me away and stared intently at me. After a moment, his slightly hoarse voice trembled slightly. Does next month's wedding still stand? I saw how careful he was. My mind raced, filled with all the kindness and care he had shown me lately. These were not things he could fake. No matter who he was, as long as he was sincere with me, that was enough. Of course it's still on. I smiled and hugged him back. His body trembled slightly, and he finally relaxed. He buried his head in my neck and mumbled, "Thank you, Liz. I've finally waited for you for 2 lifetimes." He said the last sentence too quietly for me to hear. However, I didn't have time to ask. He was busy customizing the most beautiful wedding dress in the world for me. The wedding dress was delivered to the hotel a day early, and Toby brought his friends along to join in the fun. He casually flipped through the wedding dress, a hint of contempt on his lips. This is cheap stuff. I've never even heard of this brand. Liz, I'm not trying to tell you anything, but your life will be much worse if you stay with him. Don't you agree? I thought everyone would laugh when he said that. But his friends stared at my wedding dress thoughtfully, their eyes filled with astonishment. Nanqing, this wedding dress is a high-end custom-made piece from Italy. It's the only one in the world and is said to be worth 100 million. What, 100 million? You must be mistaken. My brother is such a dull person. He doesn't even have a share in the Song family's company. How could he afford a 100 million wedding dress? He's just showing off. It must be a knockoff. Toby laughed arrogantly as if he had heard the biggest joke ever. His friend frowned and hurriedly checked his phone. Nanqing, it's real. Who is your brother? When he saw the picture on his phone, Toby's expression changed drastically. He compared it several times, and the smile on his lips disappeared. He stared at Roy as if he were a stranger. Impossible, he must have rented it. Roy and I ignored him and had someone pack up the wedding dress. I heard that he flew into a rage when he got home that day. In the end, I don't know what Jiang Giselle said to him, but he calmed down. I still felt uneasy. There was definitely something going on between those two. On the wedding day, I was very careful and tried to avoid contact with them. But Jiang Giselle was my father's illegitimate daughter. She used her identity as a member of my family to come to the dressing room to help me put on my wedding dress. Oh no, the wedding dress is ruined. Jiang Giselle cried out apologetically, but the corners of her mouth curved into a subtle smile. I checked the wedding dress and found that the sheer fabric at the neckline had been cut by something sharp and was no longer wearable. The anger that had been building up inside me flared up, and I lost my temper. I instinctively raised my hand to slap her. You did that on purpose. Before I could act, Toby suddenly burst in. Without asking a single question, he picked up his phone and started making a call. Hello, is this the Italian brand? My brother Roy rented a wedding dress and it was ruined. Come over and compensate him. What, he paid for it in full? After hanging up, his face turned extremely ugly, and his gaze toward me became even more obscure and difficult to discern. Roy walked in calmly. He didn't even glance at them as he passed by, giving me a comforting look. Liz, I've prepared a backup wedding dress for you. Try it on. Just as he was speaking, A waiter brought in an even more luxurious wedding dress. This one was even more beautiful than the previous one. Another high-end custom-made dress. Why do you get all the good things? Jiang Giselle glared at me with hatred, regretting her decision. Originally, she was supposed to marry Roy, but she looked down on him and insisted on seducing Toby to oppose me. Now it was too late for regrets. You're so rich, you hid it well. Toby felt his face was lost. He went crazy and smashed all the bottles and jars on the dressing table onto the floor. He came up to me with a gloomy face and pointed at me angrily. No wonder you fell in love with someone else. Did you know about this all along? You were after his money. Toby, she's your sister-in-law. Roy shielded me behind him. Uncharacteristically angry, he pushed Toby away without hesitation. What sister-in-law? Liz liked me first. She's my wife. Toby's anger was ignited, and he rolled up his sleeves, ready for a fight. Roy stood his ground fearlessly, his knuckles cracking loudly, seemingly eager for what was about to happen. Seeing that things were getting out of hand, I quickly pulled the two brothers apart. I pushed Toby out of the makeup room. Toby, stop causing trouble. In your previous life, you killed me, and it was Li Chuan who helped me bury you. What reason do I have not to choose him? Hearing this, Toby froze. His eyes were filled with resentment, and he shouted, Do you have any conscience? In your previous life, it was I who helped you bury you. Impossible. I widened my eyes, my heart pounding wildly. Before I died, it was indeed Roy I saw. Toby smiled bitterly, his voice low and hoarse. After sending you to the mental hospital in my previous life, I realized that I had fallen in love with you. Unfortunately, I was abroad on business at the time, so I had to ask Giselle to take care of you. He paused here, his tone heavy. But when I came back from abroad, you had already committed suicide. Liz, I wronged you in my previous life. Please give me a chance to make it up to you. I looked at Giselle in confusion. Sure enough, I caught a fleeting look of panic on her face. Noticing my scrutinizing gaze, she hurriedly averted her eyes. Yes, it was Nanqing who came back to collect your body. Seeing her guilt, I understood everything. She must have bribed the psychiatrist at the mental hospital and had me tortured to death before Toby returned. Today, I would tear off her hypocritical mask. Looking around, everyone was stunned by what we were talking about. I dismissed everyone else and decided to keep Roy here, lest he start thinking too much. Toby, you thought I was living well in the mental hospital, so you tried to kill yourself out of gratitude, didn't you? Toby was taken aback, but he hung his head in shame and muttered, I'm sorry. I know it was my actions that hurt you. Shut up. You know nothing. Every day in there, I was forced to take medicine, electrocuted, beaten, bound, and abused, all at Jiang Giselle's orders. On the day I died, it was snowing heavily. She threw me into a mass grave to be fed to dogs. It was Li Chuan who came to help me collect my body. He pulled my flesh from the dogs' mouths, piece by piece, and pieced together my bones so I could be buried. You said you helped collect my body? What kind of body did you collect? Her emotions seemed to have found an outlet. I finally couldn't hold back my tears and poured out all my grievances in pain. Liz, you still have me. Roy calmly held me in his arms. A few strands of hair fell over his forehead, obscuring his expression. I could only feel his body tense up, as if he was suppressing something. No, I didn't let anyone hurt you. It was you, Jiang Giselle, why did you do this? Toby shook his head frantically to explain. Suddenly, his body was filled with rage, and he grabbed Jiang Giselle by the neck. Jiang Giselle was scared out of her wits. She was incoherent and didn't even know what she was saying. No, I didn't use a fake corpse to deceive you. No, I mean I didn't throw Sis's body to the dogs. No, that's not it. Ah. Go to hell, Jiang Giselle. How could you be so cruel? Why? Toby understood immediately. The veins on his forehead bulged, making his face look hideous and terrifying. He started punching and kicking Jiang Giselle. She covered her head and curled up on the floor, unable to hold back her screams. It's all because I found out you loved her. If she didn't die, I wouldn't have had a chance. The air seemed to freeze, and the room fell into a deathly silence. After a brief silence, Toby kicked her again, hard, in the stomach, sending her flying across the room. Do you know who I met abroad in my previous life? Toby stared at her coldly. His low voice was cold and emotionless. I met your former nanny. She said you were a liar since you were a child. In order to get your father's attention, you always fought with Liz behind his back. Jiang Giselle, didn't you say Liz always bullied you? Explain why your nanny would say that about you. I didn't believe it before, but now I finally understand. The clown has always been me. You've been fooling me all along. He grew more and more excited, his face darkening to a frightening shade. Jiang Giselle lay on the ground, her face as pale as paper. She shook her head frantically, her pupils dilating. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but couldn't say a word. I didn't want to watch them fight anymore, so I was about to ask Roy to kick them out. Suddenly, I felt the strong hand around my waist loosen. Roy's face changed slightly and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Ugh. I turned around abruptly. The bloody scene before my eyes made my pupils contract rapidly. Li Chuan. He managed to smile at me weakly before fainting in my arms. The scene was in chaos. Roy was rushed to the hospital, retained without replacement, for treatment. The doctor said he had been poisoned, but fortunately, he was treated in time and his life was not in danger. Upon receiving the news, I reported it to the police immediately. After investigation by the police, it was discovered that the poisoner was Toby. You ungrateful son, was it really you? Song's father was so angry that he almost fainted. Toby snorted lightly, his tone casual. So what if it was me? My brother is just a good-for-nothing. He's dead, and I don't believe you'd sacrifice me for that worthless thing. Dad, Roy is just an illegitimate child. Is it worth getting so worked up over him? How can you face my mother? Today, Toby's mother, who was always eating vegetarian food and chanting Buddhist sutras, was also there. She stood in the crowd and lowered her head in shame when she heard his words. Song's father was furious and slapped him across the face. You bastard, who told you that Li Chuan was an illegitimate child? Looking at Roy, who was unconscious in the intensive care unit, I finally understood how difficult his life had been over the years. No wonder he had become so withdrawn and quiet. In fact, it was his way of protecting himself. A surge of anger rose in my heart, and I rushed over and slapped him hard across the face. I grabbed his collar and gritted my teeth, saying, Toby, you bastard. Your mother is the other woman. Strictly speaking, you're the illegitimate child. Back then, Li Chuan's mother kindly took your mother in to work as a maid for the Song family, but she seduced your father. To climb the social ladder, she secretly poisoned Li Chuan's mother, causing her to die a tragic death, retained as is. I read all of this in that document. Toby froze in place, unable to move. His expression was blank, and his voice trembled. Dad, is what she said true? Song's father didn't expect me to know the truth about what happened back then, and he was truly shocked. But faced with Toby's questioning, he still nodded. Mom? Toby couldn't accept this fact and turned his eyes to Song's mother for help. Song's mother was already sobbing uncontrollably, and the prayer beads in her hand were broken. They fell to the ground, making a crisp sound as they bounced. That's right. Back then, I was possessed by evil and did something ungrateful. All these years, I've been eating vegetarian food and chanting Buddhist sutras every day, but I still can't atone for my sins. Child, it is we who owe the Song family. You are being foolish. The moment the truth was revealed, Toby leaned against the cold wall and slowly slumped to the ground. He muttered to himself, his words barely audible. Brother, I'm sorry. He stayed at the door of the intensive care unit. It wasn't until early the next morning, when Roy was transferred to a regular ward, that he finally breathed a sigh of relief. After this incident, Song's father was completely disappointed in him. He stripped him of all his power in the Song family and officially handed the Song family over to Roy. Song's mother knew she was in the wrong and didn't dare to say anything. She obediently stayed in the Song family's old house and didn't go anywhere. This worried Jiang Giselle. She repeatedly asked Toby out and tried to persuade him. Your father is too biased. Why should he strip you of your power in the Song family? After all, you are also a member of the Song family. Half of the Song family should be yours. Jiang Giselle, I've told you many times, don't try to interfere. Even if the Song family were mine alone, I would never marry a woman with a heart as poisonous as yours. Now Toby despised her to the extreme. He didn't even want to say another word to her. Toby, if you don't marry me, who else will you marry? If you don't fight for me, I'll fight for myself. Jiang Giselle was so angry that she stamped her feet. Since Roy had just recovered from a serious illness, I took care of him day and night at the Song family's old mansion. After many days of hard work, I fell asleep at the bedside. Vaguely, I heard someone arguing and calling for help. I wanted to open my eyes, but I couldn't wake up. In the morning, I was shaken awake. The first thing I saw was Jiang Giselle's hypocritical face. Sis, even if taking care of Roy was hard, you shouldn't have let your resentment turn to hatred and killed Uncle Song and Aunt Song. Hearing this, I was instantly awake. Looking around, I saw Song's father and mother lying in a pool of blood, and I was holding a bloody knife in my hand. Ah! I screamed in fear. I hurriedly threw the knife on the ground. The police quickly arrived and took me away. I was arrested and detained according to the law. Liz, don't worry, we'll get you out. Roy and Toby came to see me. They didn't believe that I had killed anyone. After a month of investigation, the real culprit was finally found. It was Jiang Giselle. The surveillance footage from the Song family's old mansion that night was finally repaired. From the footage, it was clear that she had bribed a servant in the old mansion that night to put sleeping pills in our food. She then used this opportunity to force Song's father to hand over the Song family's shares. When Song's father refused, she decided to kill him and frame me. My suspicion was cleared, and I was released without charge. Unfortunately, Jiang Giselle had already received word and fled. The night I was taken back to the Song family's old mansion, she was hiding in my bathroom. When I was about to take a shower, she rushed over with a knife. Her face was cold and she had a vicious look in her eyes. I'm going to kill you. The two Song brothers are both under your spell. Why? What makes you better than me? I was cornered against the wall with no way out. At the last moment, Roy kicked the door open and blocked the knife for me. Jiang Giselle, you're the one who deserves to die. Toby heard the commotion and rushed in. Seeing what was happening in the room, he reacted quickly, subduing Jiang Giselle in a few moves and taking the knife from her hands. Nanqing, I did this for you. You can't hand me over to the police. When the police arrived, Jiang Giselle panicked. She begged Toby for mercy. But in the end, she was taken away by the police. Jiang Giselle was sentenced to death. On the day of her execution, she asked to see me. After not seeing her for a while, her long hair, which she was so proud of, had been cut short, and she looked haggard, as if she had aged more than 10 years. Sitting in the visiting room, she still held her head high with pride. A mocking smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. In your previous life, you died young. Do you want to know what happened after you died? She deliberately paused for a long time, satisfied to see the confusion on my face before continuing. Toby committed suicide by embracing your fake body. Before he died, he traded his soul and his life to the gods for a chance to bring you back to life. He wanted to start over with you. Haha, he sacrificed his eternal rebirth for yours. This is his last life, but what did he get in return? Ha ha ha. The gunshot rang out, and I broke out in a cold sweat. I quickly left the prison and saw Toby at the door. He walked up to me, smiled softly, but his eyes were filled with sadness. Do we still have a chance? No. I looked up at him with a complicated expression. I shook my head decisively under his hopeful gaze. I understand. He turned away dejectedly, his shoulders trembling slightly. The breeze carried his slightly regretful voice to my ears. If only I hadn't always tested you in this life, would you have looked at me one more time? I didn't respond to his words. That day, he boarded a flight and left the country. I never saw him again. 3 months later, Roy's knife wounds healed. I finally had the chance to confront him. Tell me, did you deliberately poison yourself on our wedding day? With his years of caution, there was no way he wouldn't have known there was poison in the wine. Roy smiled gently and pulled me into his arms. He dotingly tapped my nose. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. Because this was my chance to bring Toby down for good. The Song family is my mother's life's work, and I couldn't let it fall into someone else's hands. I nodded understandingly, smiled, and said nothing. Actually, I also knew he had been reborn. But we both knew it and never mentioned it. For the rest of our lives, we stayed together until we grew old. The end. 20 years of marriage and my husband had kept a mistress for 15 to force me to give up my place. He only gave me 1,000 yuan a month to live on. I stubbornly raised our 2 sons alone just to make sure they didn't get their happy ending. In the end, I died from overwork. But when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day we first fought over divorce. Both of my sons stood in front of me and said they wanted to live with their father. I knew instantly they were reborn. 2. Hello everyone. Welcome to Shelter Logs. Click the subscribe button and you can listen to wonderful novels every day. The story is about to begin. Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes again, everything was black for a moment before gradually becoming clear. The mess in front of me stunned me for a good 10 seconds before I realized where I was. Isn't this the apartment Luis and I bought when we first got married? Later, he secretly sold this place and kicked me and our 2 sons out, forcing us to rent a shabby unit in an old urban village. We lived there for over 10 years. I touched the wound on my forehead, trying to recall what day it was. In my past life. Today was the day I first found out Luis was cheating. I lost control and fought with him. He shoved me and I hit my forehead on the corner of the coffee table, passing out cold. I was lucky to survive. When I woke up and demanded a divorce, his entire extended family swarmed in to persuade me to stay. Come on. Every marriage goes through this. They said, my sister wanted to come from out of town to pick me up and take me home. You'll always have a place with us, she said. But I was angry. I insisted on keeping my rightful place as the legal wife and refused to let that scumbag get what he wanted. Only my stubbornness didn't stop them from living a good life. Louise, utterly shameless, sold the house behind my back, moved to another city with the other woman, and even had a child with her. He returned to our hometown only every few years, getting lightly scolded at most. After his mother passed away, he stopped caring altogether. The happier their life became, the more determined I was to cling to my place and become the biggest thorn in their side. I raised our 2 sons alone until they became adults and then died young from overwork. In my final year, while I lay in the hospital, Luis spent over 200,000 yuan to send his elementary school-aged illegitimate son overseas to study, yet refused to pay my son's college expenses. Remembering all this, I got up from the floor and slowly walked over to the mirror. Seeing the wound on my forehead made me smile. Not enough. I scanned the room, picked up a glass cup nearby, and smashed it against the wound again. Watching fresh blood flow, I finally smiled with satisfaction. With my hair soaked in blood, I dashed out of the house, panicked and helpless. This time, I won't foolishly waste my life in that burning pit. As soon as I left, I ran into an auntie from the neighborhood. As soon as I saw her, I cried out in panic. Help! Help! My husband is trying to kill me. She wasn't the type to back down. What? She bellowed, pulling me into her arms. Don't worry. He wouldn't dare. I'm calling the police right now. Tell me what happened. Seeing the mix of concern and juicy curiosity on her face, I threw myself into her arms and cried harder, careful not to let her see the smirk hiding at the corners of my mouth. I can't go on anymore. That bastard cheated on me and now wants me to give up my place for that woman or else he'll kill me. I gave him 2 sons. Served him for years. Never heard a kind word all year. And now he wants to buy a house for his mistress. Tears and blood mixed across my face. I beat my chest and stomped my feet, looking as pitiful as could be. And I had no doubt this auntie would spread the story even more dramatically than I told it. The police arrived quickly. My eyes lit up, and I clutched the officer's hand, wailing again. Comrade, you have to help me. The female officer took me to get my wounds treated briefly, then brought me back to the station to file a report. Not long after, Louise, who had been summoned, showed up in the station lobby with a gloomy face. As soon as he saw the police, he immediately put on a flattering smile. Officer, I'm really sorry. It was just a fight between husband and wife. Nothing serious. Sorry for troubling you. The young female officer handling my report slammed the table in anger. A fight or domestic violence? You know very well which one it was. Chapter 2. As for him, he was smug and fearless. I knew well that in domestic disputes, mediation was always the priority. Luis came out after giving his statement, nodding and bowing. All smiles. All right. All right. I'll change. I'll definitely change. You're right to teach me. But as soon as he turned to face me, his expression flipped full of malice. I curled my lips into a smile and fainted dramatically in front of everyone. At the hospital, I completed a checkup. Thanks to my superb acting, I obtained a diagnosis of suspected brainstem injury. I knew then divorce was in the bag. Even if Louise was furious now, he wouldn't dare lay a hand on me. We returned home in peace. What awaited me next was the classic trial by in-laws. Around 100 p.m. the next day, Louis's entire family showed up. The moment they stepped in, his sister saw the bowl in my hand and immediately scowled. Fiona, my brother works so hard to support you. And all you do is cook and clean. We came all this way and didn't even get a bite to eat or a glass of water. They used to gaslight me like this in my previous life. 2. Before I discovered Louis's betrayal, he did give me 3,000 yuan a month for household expenses. That 3,000 covered everything. The two boys' costs, food, electricity, gas, social obligations, weddings, and funerals. I had to pinch every penny. But it was barely enough to get by. We weren't living in poverty. Back then, I believed the narrative that everything in the household was supported by Louise. But now I realize from appliances to grains, I was the one hustling early mornings for discount deals. If I hadn't managed the household so carefully with Louise smoking 50 yuan a pack cigarettes, 3,000 wouldn't have lasted a week and not a single cent was spent on me. I slurped the last few noodles and clanked my bowl and chopsticks down. Wiping my mouth, I said, "Aunt, you came without a heads up. How was I supposed to cook anything?" I nudged my chin toward the trash can. "Can't even offer you water. Louise smashed everything yesterday. The injury on my head, courtesy of a flying glass. Big sis-in-law. I get 3,000 yuan a month to run this whole household. Last year when you had your second baby, I gave 1,200 for a gift. For birthdays. When I was hospitalized. You never returned a favor. You give it back now. I'll go buy groceries for you guys." She was so choked up. She turned her back to me after playing the bad cop. Louis's mom came to play the good one, frowning in concern. AI. What couple doesn't argue? Sure. It was wrong of Louis to hit you. But you can't call the police over household matters. In my last life, she couldn't control the mistress. So, she took it out on me. The so-called soft target. She gaslight-diked me with talk like, "We're all on your side. Just wait it out and that woman will end up with nothing." I let out a cold laugh. Not only did I speak up this time, I made sure people came to see it. Noisy footsteps echoed in the hallway. The neighborhood auntie had arrived with her gossip gang. "This house right here, that bastard cheated and hit his wife. Don't know what kind of mother raised a man like that." Louis's mom's expression darkened on the spot. I held up yesterday's injury report. Pictures of bruises and cuts. Gruesome and undeniable. Don't bother trying to talk me down. I'm divorcing him if I don't. I'm suing him. Louise exploded. Fine, let's divorce. I've been dying to get away from you anyway. But his mother didn't want the divorce. She knew full well her son was almost 30. Owned nothing but a house that drained the family's savings. And he'd never find another fool like me who worked herself to death without complaint. Chapter 3. I want to live with Grandma. Me? Too. I want to live with Dad and Grandma. I didn't even notice when the boys appeared at the door. The three of us locked eyes. In a flash, it clicked. I knew it. My sons had been reborn. 2. In the last life, I struggled to raise them alone. Even with 3 jobs day and night, I couldn't cover their expenses, while other kids traveled on school breaks. Mine could only work part-time by their teens when they were still growing. Meat was scarce. They'd eat cheap cookies late at night and fill their bellies with water to save off hunger. In high school, a kind teacher tried to tutor them privately, but we couldn't afford it. So, even though they were top-tier students, they ended up at mediocre colleges. And when they got sick, we could barely afford cold medicine. One thing after another. How could they not resent it? Louis's mom, who had been hesitant, suddenly lit up. My 2 grandsons. Grandma didn't love you for nothing. Divorce. You must divorce him. She was humiliated earlier by neighbors. Now the boys' support gave her a sense of pride again. Her voice firm as a gavel. Louise smirked at me smugly as if to say, "See? Once you leave me, you'll have nothing. Not even your sons." I nearly laughed out loud. He still didn't understand how expensive raising kids was. The house wasn't under my name. I paid for the renovations, and when it came time to divide assets, Louise's mom said smugly, "This house is ours. We'll give you 30,000 yuan at most. Take it or leave it, or take the furniture." The furniture? 10-year-old junk. And since my family lived far away, they thought I wouldn't take anything. They underestimated me. I called the neighborhood aunties. Whatever they liked. They took what no one wanted. I called the recycling man, for Louise watched the house empty piece by piece. His face green with rage. "Fiona, you're heartless." I rolled my eyes. "Leaving my dowry for you and your mistress. Now that would be heartless." Once I moved out, the other woman could finally move in. As soon as the divorce certificate was finalized, Louise set a wedding date. On their wedding day, my sister came from out of town. She lit firecrackers and beat drums downstairs early in the morning. The neighbors all knew Louise was remarrying. No one even blinked. My sister handed out candy to everyone she met, grinning brighter than a blooming flower. People who didn't know better thought she was the one getting married. Passers-by, confused but amused, took candy and said, "Is there good news at home?" "Congratulations." She beamed and stuffed candy into their hands. "There is good news. My sister got divorced." Then she pointed up, signaling them to look. She had hung a banner over the entrance that read, "Celebrating my sister's divorce from a heartless man. Congratulations to the ex-brother on his second marriage." The new bride insisted on a grand entrance, riding a flower sedan through the main gate, only to crash right into the welcoming parade my sister had arranged. Seeing her approach, my sister turned around and waved her hand. "Strike up the band. Let's welcome the new bride properly." Everyone watching immediately understood what was happening, with help from the neighborhood aunties explaining the whole story. The crowd was fully entertained. The bride was supposed to disembark and step over a fire basin, as tradition goes. But Gloria refused to show her face from inside the sedan. Her voice came out, trembling with sobs. "Let's go." Chapter 4. Louise, the star of the day, was stabbed by every gaze and humiliated by all the pointing fingers. My 2 sons hugged their grandma's waist and frowned. "Grandma, Mom is being too much. How could she do this?" From across the street, I sat in my sister's car, watching it all unfold, my nose stinging with emotion. At that moment, I remembered the day before my wedding in my past life, when my sister came into my room holding my hand with worry on her face. She said, "Fiona, you were such a good kid. Why are you being so stubborn now? Insisting on marrying far away? If something happens, your family won't be able to help you." Back then, I didn't understand her sadness. Now I know only blood ties are truly unbreakable. Although I left, I had made arrangements. My aunts agreed to watch over my 2 sons and report back if anything went wrong. Barely a few days had passed before my aunt came gossiping again. "Fiona, that new wife Louise married. She's not easy to deal with. Says women should be pampered, not treated like maids. Louise has to cook for her every night now. If he comes home late, They just eat out. My aunt was outraged. But I was delighted. Louise's new wife, Gloria, had only a high school diploma and started working young. She's just 21 with limited options in her circle. She thought a man with a house like Louise was a great catch and married him eagerly. She's not particularly beautiful. But she's young and knows how to act coy. Louise was willing to spoil and spend on her. But didn't think about whether he could afford it. He might cook for a week. But no way he could last a month. Especially since when I was there, he never had to lift a finger. How could he possibly tolerate this now? Sure enough, my aunt smugly told me Louise had been grocery shopping daily. He didn't know you had to get up early to grab the good stuff or wait around for the cheap deals. But he was enjoying himself, posting updates on social media. There they were, shopping at the supermarket. Snacks, premium fruits, and tiny organic veggies wrapped in plastic wrap. Everything looked blissful and picture perfect. But I knew it wouldn't last. Still, I didn't expect their first fight to come so quickly. Their first argument. It came through my son's smartwatch call left open in the living room just for me to hear. How much can groceries cost? I give you $4,000 a month. Isn't that enough? Can't you cut down on snacks? You didn't eat the snacks. Now you're blaming me. Didn't you say you treat me like a queen forever? I should have married someone my own age. Gloria started crying. Louise softened immediately and lowered his voice to comfort her. All right. We ate out too much this month. Next month we'll cook at home. You buy the groceries. I'll do the cooking. Okay. And just like that, they made up again. On the other end of the line, I laughed coldly. Two people who've never been crushed by the grind of daily life. Life itself will teach them a lesson. Chapter 5. Peace didn't last long enough. Chaos returned to Louis's household. The money Louise gave Gloria was meant to cover the whole family's expenses. But she thought the two kids just needed a week's allowance since they ate and lived at school. What she didn't know was that boarding school kids often brought back snacks, fruit, and milk on Sundays. Extra food to enjoy during the week. My two sons, of course, never mentioned it to her or bothered Louise. They simply lowered their heads in silence when classmates asked why they never brought snacks or fruit. When the classmates told their parents that the boys had to share other snacks, the adults understood the situation immediately. My aunt's out walking with my sons. Ran into Louise and half joked, half scolded Louise. They say with a stepmother comes a stepfather too. If it's too much, maybe just let the kids live with their mother. After another round of nagging, Louise was furious, tired of cooking. He snapped at Gloria and dumped all the housework on her. His excuse? Since the money wasn't enough, he'd just work more overtime. Gloria would have to handle everything at home. Then came the classic brainwashing. Look at your friends still working factory jobs. Living in dorms or rented places. None of them have it as good as you. You live in a big county house. Don't have to wake up early. Just cook and relax. This family really mastered the art of emotional manipulation. Used to do it to me. Now it's Gloria's turn. At the end of the day, they're all selfish and only love themselves. Soon it was New Year's Eve. In my past life, Gloria's obsession had always been being officially brought home by Louise and accepted by his mom, not just being his nameless mistress. Now she had her wish and was officially the daughter-in-law. She truly felt like part of the family, which made her more susceptible to their brainwashing. That night, Louise video called me. I answered. On screen were my two sons, clearly reluctant to be there. Before I could speak, my mother-in-law chimed in cheerfully. Oh, these boys. It's only proper to wish their mother a happy new year. They're just shy. Fiona. Don't take it personally. Louise played along, acting the part. Yes. Say Happy New Year to your mom. I'll give you a big red envelope after. Looking at Louise and his smug family on the phone screen, I couldn't help but laugh. My sons were amazing actors. The more distant my kids were from me, the more they blended into Louis's family, and the more chaos they could stir up from within. My sons reluctantly said Happy New Year to me before quickly turning their faces away. Louis's family, however, took pride in this, smiling cheerfully as they bid me farewell. I heard Louise in the background. Here, boys. 200 each. I smiled just as sweetly and hung up the phone. My mother gave me a disgusted look from across the table, curling her lip. Ungrateful brats. All those years of love wasted. I smiled and picked up a piece of meat for her, gently comforting her. It's all right, Mom. They'll understand when they're older. Then I casually asked, is Uncle Nestor starting up a factory? Should I go help? My mother was surprised. How did you know? Of course, I knew. In my past life, Mom had asked me the same thing, whether I wanted to make a little extra money. To be honest, the pay was decent, calculated monthly. It was even more than Luis earned. But Luis didn't want me to work. He said I should stay home and focus on housework. So I gave up the opportunity. Chapter 6. Unexpectedly, Uncle Netter's factory flourished later on. It grew bigger and bigger. And those early employees who stuck through the tough days all received shares. Every year, they got tens of thousands in dividends with their own income. Those housewives stood tall and proud at home. Meanwhile, I endured Louis's constant nagging. If only you had gone out to work back then. You'd have shares, too. Things wouldn't be so tight now. And after he kicked me out, trying to live on just 1,000 U on a month, my regret only deepened. Mom hesitated, saying, Uncle Nestor did ask. But I think it's too tiring. There aren't many workers. Everyone has to do the job of 2 people. It's okay, Mom. I can handle it. I want to earn money to take care of you in your old age. I cut her off with a smile. Compared to the bitter life of my previous life, now that I'm away from Louise, without kids to care for, just earning money for myself, honestly, it feels amazing. At the start of the year, I returned to Louis's city and began working. Uncle Netter laughed, saying, I worked like someone who had been starving for days. I said nothing and just smiled because he wasn't wrong. If I had seized this opportunity and earned my own income in my past life, things wouldn't have turned out so hard. Now that I've gotten it back, I treasure it more than ever. Time flew by, and my 2 children were now in the 9th grade. That year, Louis's mother fell ill in my previous life. It was also around this point that Luis and I began living apart. By this point, Luis and Gloria didn't even bother hiding their relationship from me anymore. Bold enough to video chat right in the house. I was juggling taking care of the house and looking after his mother at the hospital when I finally snapped. I broke all ties with Luis. And not long after, he sold the house without asking and threw me and my son out. Now it was Gloria's turn to face it all. After nearly a year, the pampered girl who once enjoyed others supporting her had been worn down by life into a resentful housewife. Tight finances, a passive-aggressive stepson, and a husband who acted like a guest at home. None of this was the married life she had imagined.